69 on the calendar in the matter of Feinstein versus Fairley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Mr. Feinstein, it is your complaint that you were assaulted and your car vandalized while you were at the defendant's bar.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defendant, although I don't think you were there, is that right?
No, I wasn't there.
She says through her employees, I'm sure she has witnesses here, are going to tell me that you were very drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
And, well, I gather you acknowledge that you were very drunk, and any injuries that you sustained were sustained as a result of you flailing around and hurting yourself, and they don't know anything that happened to your car. So, what's the name of your bar, pub?
Scotland Yard Pub.
Which of your employees was there that evening?
Justin and Eric.
Stand up, please. And you don't know anything about this of your own personal knowledge?
No, I wasn't there.
You can have a seat. Justin?
Yes.
And Eric?
That's correct.
What is your given first name?
Lucky.
That's what your parents named you?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Are you an only child?
No, there's 3 other siblings.
Are you the first, second, third, or the fourth?
I'm the 4th.
You're the last one.
Lucky to be here.
Got it. This incident happened at the pub.
The 22nd of what?
First, we got to get the date. Questions get harder, Lucky.
7/22, I believe it was.
Had you been to this pub before?
Only a couple times before this.
Immediately prior to the 22nd of July, when had you been to the pub?
Maybe a week before that.
So sometime the 15th, 16th.
Yeah.
Prior to that, when had you been to the club?
Maybe a month previous to that one.
Never had any trouble there?
Never, no.
You have a drinking problem?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I like to drink, but I don't consider myself having a problem with it, no.
Well, according to you, Lucky, on the 22nd of July of 2005, you were drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
If I had to place a wager, I would say you have at least a minor problem with alcohol.
I would agree with that, yes.
Who do you live with?
I live with my parents.
They still think they're lucky?
I help them. I think that they do, yes, because I help them out.
So tell me what happened on the 22nd, Lucky.
Okay, in the afternoon, I was at my friend's restaurant, which is a couple doors down from theirs.
What were you doing there?
I was eating pizza. They have a pizza place. I've been going there for the past 25 years, and I decided to go next door, and I was advised to never ever go into that place because I would end up in trouble there, because there's always trouble over there. I went over there and ended up there a lot longer than I anticipated. I had way more drinks than I, wanted to have, but I was having a good time, so I kept on.
How were you having a good time?
Well, I was shooting pool, and I was talking to people, and I was buying several people drinks. Then, approximately 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, I made the mistake.
What time did you arrive there?
Oh, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had maybe 12 beers there or something like that. I was out of control, I admit that, but I didn't cause any problems. I wasn't obnoxious.
When you say you were out of control, Lucky,
well, drinking-wise.
tell me what you mean.
Drinking-wise, I overdid it drinking-wise, and I knew that I was drunk, and I wasn't about to drive out of there to leave, I was going to call a taxi, and I went into the bathroom. That was the mistake I made because the bouncer was in there. No words were exchanged. I looked at him, and the next thing I know, I was out unconscious. And then I found myself in the parking lot, left for dead. When I came to, first thing I saw was him again.
Which one?
This guy here in the black shirt.
That would be Eric.
I asked him for help, realizing that my wallet was missing, and if I could go back in the bathroom to see if my wallet was in there. He said, no, you're drunk. Get out of here. And then he said the police are coming too. So I said, well, okay, well, I would like to wait for the police and talk to them. The police came, and they just told me that I need to go home too. Call a taxi, do whatever, go home.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do. Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to see it. Go ahead.
I went over to my truck, my tailgate, and sat there. A couple women came over and were sitting next to me, assuring me everything's going to be okay. A couple minutes go by, and the police come back again, which I was not causing any more problems, that's for sure.
Well, somebody called them.
They were called again.
But they weren't called by you.
No, ma'am.
So they were called by somebody about your behavior.
But I wasn't doing anything.
That's not my question. I said they were called by somebody about your behavior.
They were called a second time.
Oh, okay. Well, this isn't the police report about their call. This is a police report that you made that said that somebody punched you in the mouth and took your property. There has to be a police report of when they responded to their calls. You did call the police, didn't you?
I called the first time.
Who called the second time?
One of the customers that was out in the parking lot.
You have a copy of that police report?
No, we do not.
Okay. So go ahead.
Okay, so then the police came for the second time, and they said, we're going to take you home. We're going to give you a taxi ride home. And they're very embarrassing to me to be put in handcuffs like I'm being arrested. At that point, I realized that I needed to go to the hospital. My face was puffing up, my back of my head, I was dizzy. So they said, would you like an ambulance? I said, yes, I would very much like an ambulance. I went to the hospital. They sewed my lip up, and then I walked back towards my vehicle, which is several miles away from there. And it was about 2:30 in the morning at that time. I realized that my truck was vandalized. My windshield was busted. My car was keyed around the sides of my car. My tailpipes were kicked down to the ground. And at that point, I realized that I better not say anything to them. And so there was a taxi out in the parking lot, and I was taken home. The very next morning, I went back there, and I talked to the owner, Patrick Sirely, and asked him if he would mind paying my hospital bill because I was beaten up in his establishment.
But you don't know who beat you up.
I'm not clear on that, but all I know is I saw him, and then I was out cold. And then I found myself in the parking lot coming to, and then I saw him again, at my feet, basically. Or I was at his feet.
So who's going to start?
I'll start.
Okay, take your hands out of your pockets and start.
When I got to work that night at 7, he came out to order another beer about a half hour into my shift, and I noticed that he was intoxicated, so I refused to serve him. And he went haywire and slammed his fist down on the bar.
Put your hand down, sir.
Called me a name that I don't think I can say. He started ripping up $100 bills in front of everyone from his wallet. Nobody laid a finger on him inside the bar. I didn't want to get into a physical altercation with him, so I waited till our doorman got on at 9. Finally, when he was put outside of the bar, he kept charging Eric, trying to bust his way back in. I went out to see what was going on. He threatened to get a gun from his truck and kill me, and Eric and everybody else in the parking lot began kicking his own truck, pounding his head into his own truck, and punching into his own truck and other people's cars in the parking lot. At one point, he knelt down in front of Eric, took off his shirt, and said, just kill me right now, just kill me right now. And that's what it seemed like it was going to get to a point where I needed to call the police because people were very angry that he was...
Is that when you called the police the first time?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If you drank too...
Night of drinking, he was assaulted by bar doorman Eric Galan. Eric and his co-worker Justin Murphy claim Lucky was out of control drunk.
Okay, Eric, you got on about 9 o'clock?
Yeah, about 9 o'clock, and it wasn't too long until Justin called me over. And I tell Lucky that he was done for the evening, he needed to go someplace else. He asked why. He said, I told him that, you were giving a problem to our bartender. Come back some other night, I'll buy you a beer, and, that'll be the end of it. He got upset and irate, said that he had a gun in his truck, and he was going to start shooting the place up. One of the customers that was sitting outside got upset by that. They started having a yelling match. I got involved. I separated the two. And he continued to threaten people that were around. He said, I was going to come back and get you, shoot you, shoot you. And that's when he tried to bully his way through me. And as soon as he touched me, I just put him to the ground and held him down.
When you say you put him to the ground, how did you put him to the ground, Eric?
Tripped his leg and put him on his back, one hand on his chest, one hand holding his arm. I said he needed to calm down. As soon as I let go of his arm, he swung on me. And I just knocked it out of the way and held him down again. And Justin was outside and said, do I need to call the cops? I said, yes, please call the police officers. I got off Lucky, went inside to make sure the cops were coming. Came back outside after a minute or two, and Lucky was already laid up against the wall at the pizzeria. Now, I didn't talk to Lucky at all in the bathroom. I don't know where that came from. So after he was laid out, he woke up a couple minutes later, and he asked me who knocked him out. I had no idea who did it. And then he started accusing me that I stole his wallet.
Did you find his wallet in the
No.
pub? Did you find your wallet
No,
subsequently?
no, Your Honor, I didn't.
The police officers came. They spoke with him. They spoke with me. They said they needed to take another call, but he was going to leave the area. He was walking down the alley. As soon as the cops were out of sight, he came back and continued to talk to some other person who wasn't even there that night.
Where were you when you observed this?
Standing at the door.
You remember any of that, sir?
No, ma'am. I never left that parking lot. I was waiting for the police to come because I
The
wanted
police
to.
came already, sir. They came and they left.
Right, and then they came back a second time.
Right. My question is, why did they have to come back a second time? Why didn't you just leave?
Because I was very drunk, I wasn't about to go anywhere, and I was sitting on my tailgate wondering, what am I going to do now?
Listen to me very carefully, sir.
Sorry.
When you're very drunk, it's very, very difficult for a court to make a judgment as to the veracity, the truthfulness of what you testify to, and to give any credence to what you testify to. You are asking me to believe you above two people who were working that evening, sober that evening, have a clear recollection, at least according to them, of what transpired that evening, as opposed to believing you who was so drunk they didn't know on which pole they were at.
Ma'am, I'm saying that they're lying about this whole thing, that he's saying that he didn't give me any more drinks after 7 o'clock at night. I was in there drinking heavily. I was having beer after beer, and they gave me way, way too many beers, in my opinion. I don't think that
How
that's
old are
right.
you?
I'm 41.
So is this what your complaint is, sir, that the bar overserved you?
Yes, ma'am, one thing. I don't think that that should
Eric,
happen.
we started this case by my saying to you, do you have a drinking problem? And you said to me, I don't think so. Maybe a little. That's like being a little bit pregnant. You never have a little bit of a drinking problem, Lucky. Now, if you were 18 years old, I would say, I'm going to nail them, because a bar should know that a kid comes in and you don't serve a kid more alcohol than they can consume. When you're 41 years old, you're supposed to know how much alcohol you can consume and still have your wits about you. And according to you, you were warned. Warned! Don't go in there. There's always trouble in that bar. But when you were at this place twice before, according to you, you had no trouble. So they clear for any reason.
I believe that they do have it in for me.
Explain that to me.
Because mainly there's just Mexicans in there, and they always call me white boy.
Lucky. Did they call you white boy on the 15th of July?
No.
Did they call you white boy the month before that when you went in there?
No.
You didn't change composition from July 15th to July 22nd, did you? You were drunk. Stop blaming the rest of the world. You were drunk. Either you fell, you got beaten up, you don't know who did it, your car got trashed, you don't know who did that. You have to accept responsibility for your own behavior. If you drank too much, it's your fault. Nobody got you down there with a funnel and filled your stomach full of beer. Nobody. You managed to do that all by yourself. If you had gotten into your car and killed somebody on the way home, I would take every piece of property that this lady had.
Which someday will happen.
Just a second. I would take every piece of property that this lady had, because under those circumstances, both of you would be responsible. I'd take every bit of property you had, and I'd take every bit of property she had, because somebody who was innocent got killed. The only one that got hurt that night was you. And you caused that yourself. So deal with it. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They're lying. No, I don't have a gun.
Heb, step forward, please.
18-year-old student Nikki Frazier and guardian Sam Suter are suing Nikki's mother, Stacy Hebb, for child support costs. Nikki says her mom won't turn over child support she receives from her father.
Mr. Suter, your complaint is that you and your family were nothing but kind to the defendant. She was having some difficulty, and she was unemployed several years ago. Her daughter and your daughter were friends since grade school, and you volunteered to give her a home.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was 16. How did you do in their home, the Suter home? Did you do okay?
Yes.
Did you graduate yet?
Oh, I graduate in a couple weeks.
What are you doing after graduation?
I want to go to college.
How did you do in high school?
I make good grades.
She's been AB honor roll all through high school.
Did you apply to college?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because the application fees are like $50 for each application, and my mom told me she'd help me pay for them, but she never helped me pay for it.
So, Mr. Suter, this is your lawsuit. Ms. Fraser lived with you for 2 years, and you got no support for her from her mother. You did not even seek support.
No, ma'am.
But then you found out that Ms. Hebb was getting support for Nikki from Nikki's father, and you feel as if that's unfair.
Somewhat, yes.
This is not rocket science, Ms. Hebb. How long have you been divorced from Nikki's father?
Since she was about 6 or 7.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the other children also the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
And how much do you receive from Nikki's father for her support?
$50 a week.
What did you do with the money since 2003?
When she has called and said that she didn't have any food in the house and she needed me to take her to eat, I would feed her. If she's needed personal hygiene items, I've taken her. I've paid her cell phone bills. And yes, I did tell her that I would pay for her application fees. She never came to me and said, I've applied here. And
I'm not worried about college application fees. How do you support yourself?
Do
you think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that the things you bought for her, the few toiletries you bought for her, or paying a cell phone bill, you did that for your daughter because you're her mother. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
The $50 a week that you were getting from her father should have gone to the Suter family.
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask? Did you ever say to him, Ms. Hebb, Mr. Suter, I get money for Nikki's support from her father. It's not right that I keep it. I'm going to turn it over to you when I get it.
No, ma'am, I didn't. I instead, like I said, whenever she would call and said that she needed things, I would take care of her.
Well, that's what you did for her because you're her mother. She has 2 parents, a mother and a father. You're the mother. You work. If you have to take care of a few items, if you happen to take care of a few items for your daughter, that's very nice of you. The other $50 a week, if her father knew that she wasn't living in your home, did your father know you weren't living?
He just found out recently because I didn't have his number to get a hold of him.
If her father knew, I guarantee you, her father wouldn't have said, well, I'm going to send her money.
Her father has known. She's gone and seen him since she's lived with Mr. Suter.
I'm just curious. not that I'm taking this for the truth of what you're going to tell me, but just my own curiosity. Did he ever say to you, if he knew that she wasn't living with you, I'd like to send the money to Mr. Suter?
No, ma'am.
Never did?
No, ma'am.
He must have had a lobotomy. Ms. Hebb, this is not a difficult case. It doesn't even test my academic prowess. The last 2 years, your daughter has been living with the Suter family, and you've collected $50 a week, roughly $2,500 a year. The Suters are suing you for $5,000 because that's approximately what you've collected over the time that your daughter has been living with the Suters from her father, and that money should have been turned over to the Suter family immediately. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all. Make those college applications now.
Parties are excused. Now, this is case number 333 on the calendar in the matter of Arnold versus Bean. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
Miss Arnold, the defendant is your aunt, and it is your claim that she has some furniture that belongs to you.
Yes.
In addition to that, you claim that she harassed you at a time when you were a tenant, along with your boyfriend?
My husband.
Your husband?
Yes.
Okay. When and why did you move in with your aunt, Miss Arnold?
I moved in with my aunt in February because I had no place to stay. I was living with my father at the time, and him and his girlfriend had split up, and I couldn't stay with my mom, so my aunt...
Just a second. So you were staying with your father and his girlfriend.
Right.
In whose apartment?
It was his girlfriend's house.
And how long had you been staying with your father?
Since I was 13.
So you moved in with your father to his girlfriend's house?
Right.
When they split up, where did your father go?
He went to one of his friends' home, and the reason why I couldn't go with him is because I have a little 16-pound cockapoo, and they already have dogs. So my aunt agreed to let me move in with her. I could keep my dog, and I would pay her $200 a month.
All right, so you moved in February, $200 a month. And then what happened?
Around June, my boyfriend started spending a lot of time with me at my house. My aunt and her boyfriend were having problems. Her boyfriend wasn't working, and he couldn't pay his bills. So my aunt asked us if we would like to move into her basement and pay her $600 a month for the basement, which would include everything in the house, utilities, food, everything. We agreed and moved down into the basement.
Okay, what was your boyfriend doing at the time?
He was working on roofing. He was a roofer.
Okay, that was in June.
Yes.
Keep going.
And in August, my car had broken down, and I couldn't get to him from school. So
I let you use my car.
Shh. Don't interrupt. You'll have a chance.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Up until the point I was able to buy a new car, my aunt let me use her car. In exchange, we replaced the gas and did oil changes on her car. Towards the end of August, I bought a car for $800 and was only able to pay her $300 of the rent that I owed her. I told her that when we got our next paycheck, we would be able to make up the difference. She agreed to that. About a week later, she served us with eviction papers and put a lock on the upstairs door so we were not able to go and use the kitchen or the upstairs bathroom.
Okay.
And after that is when everything started getting out of control. My aunt would come downstairs drunk and call us out of our names. She would tell us to get the out of her house. And at some point, she would badger us so bad that we did have to leave. And on 3 occasions, actually, we had to call the cops on her.
Okay.
Because she wouldn't leave us alone.
I don't get to the furniture. Somehow
Okay.
in your whole complaint, you're talking about
Right.
furniture, and
The
you didn't tell me
furniture-
anything about the furniture.
The furniture, when we made the decision to move down into the basement, I had all of my belongings in storage.
What belongings did you have?
I had the furniture in storage. I
What
had
furniture?
the living room furniture. It was living room
What?
furniture. It was
What?
a 5-piece sectional couch and 2 antique parquet tables.
When had you purchased the 5-piece sectional?
The 5-piece sectional couch was purchased in Maryland.
By whom?
Me and my father. And when I moved out of his house, and I tried to go on my own at first, and I got my own place, and he gave me the furniture back. We put it in there, and then when it didn't work out in my own place, I put
Your own place.
just jobs and bills and just being young and buying stupid stuff and not really paying attention to what's going on. So it didn't work out, and I moved back into my father's house.
And you put the furniture in storage. How did your aunt get it in her house?
My aunt was complaining because she says that her furniture embarrassed her. She had really not too nice furniture in her house. So I agreed to put the furniture in her house until I moved out.
Okay. All right, Miss Beam, let's get to the furniture first.
Well, I got rid of 2 complete sets of furniture to accommodate her furniture.
Why would you do that?
Because she could not afford to keep it in storage and pay me.
Listen, you don't get rid of wonderful furniture that
Well, I
you
didn't
love.
say it was the best.
All right. So her story has a ring of truth to it, Miss Beam, that you didn't like your furniture, that it was old.
It was old, yes.
Okay.
And after she was there for a while, then she stated how she was going to give that to me because when she moved out, her and Travis were going to start fresh.
When she first put it in your house,
Yes.
she put it in your house, and she said to you, use it for as long as you like while I'm here. Is that right?
Yes.
And you say sometime later she told you, you keep it.
That's right.
When later?
I would say it was in The end of June.
The end of June?
Yeah, because that's when her car started breaking down and she started to need my car to get back and forth to work on a daily basis.
Okay. Now, Miss Bean, your counterclaim alleges that Miss Arnold called Child Protective Services on you, and she acknowledges that she did.
Yes.
How old is your child?
10.
Boy or a girl?
Boy.
Who is this person who's here with you?
It's my brother.
Does he live with you?
No, but he takes care of my son in the morning before he goes to school.
Tell me your name.
Bernard Homan.
How far do you live from your sister, Mr. Homan?
Between 3 and 4 miles.
Did you ever know your sister to have a drinking problem? Look at me. Did you ever know your sister to have a drinking problem?
No, I wouldn't say a problem, no.
What would you say, sir? And I want you to make sure you answer, because, you know, I know everything.
I understand.
So I want you to give me an answer.
She has more liquor bottles in her house than I do.
Have you ever seen your sister intoxicated?
In the past, I have, yeah.
When was the last time you saw your sister intoxicated?
Probably over a year.
Where?
It was at a party.
Family party?
It was.
Did you ever have any concern about your sister and her drinking? Look at me. Don't look down. You see, that's a sign, sir.
Okay.
That's a sign. Did you ever have any concern about your sister and drinking?
No.
You should.
Why should he?
Because, I'm going to answer your question. Because people who abuse alcohol...
What makes you think I'm abusing?
Shh, listen to me. Listen to me. You asked me a question, I'm going to try to answer you.
Okay.
People who abuse alcohol have an affect. And when you've been involved in the court system for as long as I have, you develop an uncanny ability to be able to tell people by their affect who have, in the past or currently, abused either drugs or alcohol. And I'm going to tell you that you are not going to be able to convince me, especially after I listen to Brother, that you do not have an alcohol problem.
You're going to go by what two vindictive teenagers say about me?
Listen to me. No, has nothing to do with what they said about you.
Well, it
you
seems
weren't
like it
listening.
does.
You weren't listening to me.
Judge, you asked me if I thought she had a drinking problem. Exactly what would be your definition of a drinking problem? Perhaps mine and yours are different.
Aren't different, sir. Yours and mine are exactly the same.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You called child...
Says her aunt, Anita Beam, won't return her living room furniture. Anita is countersuing, claiming Cassandra filed false charges with Child Protective Services.
Miss Beam, listen to me. There are two things that I have to determine in this lawsuit. One, whether or not you are responsible for the furniture. And I find that the furniture was not given to you as a gift, that the furniture was given to you by this young lady to use, and that since I have no indication that this furniture is going to be returned in reasonable condition, and since she doesn't have a bill, and since it's a 5-piece sectional, I'm ascribing to this used furniture, which was used when she put it in your house, the whole kit and caboodle, not $5,000, $800. Then I have to...
She told me she only paid $250 from a crackhead for it.
Listen to me. Then I have to look at your counterclaim. The plaintiff acknowledges she called Child Protective Services.
Uh-huh.
So there's no issue that she did. I believe that she did, at least in part, because of the bad blood that developed towards the end of her tenancy with you. Whether I find, by just a little bit more evidence, that there was some basis for her to call is the issue. And I don't want to go into, after the boyfriend moved out, whether you started
to drink more. It's not my boyfriend,
more.
it's my son's father.
Just one second. Did he live with you?
Yes, he did.
Okay. He wasn't your husband?
No.
Well, then how would you introduce him to people?
My son's father.
You would say, I'm living with my son's father.
Yep.
Not your boyfriend, not your fiancé?
No, I don't call a man that's 52 years old a boy.
Got it? Got it. Okay. Miss Arnold, what you said in your complaint was that as soon as you moved in, you realized that your aunt had a drinking problem and got nasty when she drank.
Yes.
But that happened as soon as you moved in.
It did.
In February. You didn't report it in February.
I had no place to
You
go.
didn't. I don't care whether you had no place to go or not. The issue in calling Child Protective Services is not whether you had a place to go. You're a grown-up. You called Child Protective Services after the eviction to get even. And if you were legitimately interested in the welfare of your 10-year-old cousin, you would have called Child Protective Services in February.
I was more...
Or March. Or April.
I was more interested in it now because after her boyfriend left, she started going really, really downhill. She started bringing strange men home. She started staying out all nights.
Listen to me. I'm dismissing your counterclaim, Miss Bean. I find that there was, in all probability, justification for her making a report to Child Protective Services, irrespective of what her motives were. I am not directing you to return this sofa, sectionals, and 2 tables to her because I'm not sure what kind of condition they'd be in when they got back to her. And I am ruling in her favor in the amount of $800 for that furniture. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $800. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She drinks.
Step forward.
20-year-old Catherine Gonzalez is suing her ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old exterminator Zachary Finney, for breaking their apartment lease and for a loan to have his teeth fixed.
So you 2 people, when you were under 20, decided to take up housekeeping together, according to what I read in your complaint, and you leased an apartment. At the time you leased this apartment together, were you working?
Yes, I was working.
And how much did you earn a week?
I got $9 an hour. I get like about $400 or $500 every 2 weeks.
Well, is it $400 every 2 weeks or $500 every 2 weeks?
The months differed, but I know in December when we moved in, I made $1,083.10 in December. No.
In December. Did you work overtime for Christmas during that time?
I worked a little bit more hours, but...
Okay. So let's say you made $500 every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay? And you, what kind of work were you doing?
I was a mover, and I made about, say, $350 every week.
So you made about $1,400
Yes, ma'am.
a month. And what kind of an apartment did you rent?
A 1-bedroom,
How much was the rent?
$530.
When did you sign the lease?
We signed it in November, but it began December 1st, 2004.
And it was a 6-month lease?
It was a 1-year lease.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until June.
So you lived there for 6 months?
Yes.
And then you moved out?
Yes.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until September 30th of this year.
So you stayed on an extra 3 months?
I'd say almost 4.
Did you pay the rent for the 4 months that you lived there?
Yes.
They're coming after you for the 2 months rent that remains on the lease after he moved out?
Yes, 2 months. He didn't pay rent.
You want him to pay those 2 months?
Yes. And also, he had porcelain veneers put on before we moved into the apartment even. And he promised he would pay me back for those when we went to Mexico to get his porcelain veneers.
How long ago was that?
That was last fall. So
a year ago?
Yes, a year ago.
Forget about it. I'm not interested in something happened a year ago. Then you moved in together, you pulled money. Did you have a joint bank account?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Get over it, Miss Gonzalez.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I have a piece of paper, though, that...
Says ex-boyfriend Zachary Finney owes for breaking their apartment lease.
Now, why do you think that he should be responsible solely for the last 2 months' rent? You moved out in June.
He promised me he would stay there until the lease was over. I told him, he didn't want to live with his parents. I said, you don't have to worry. I won't ever make you live. As long as you stay there, you can stay there. I trust you. And he promised that he would stay there until the lease was up.
Well, didn't you promise him you were going to stay there until the lease was up when you signed the lease with him?
Yes, but until he asked me to leave, then...
He asked you to leave, why?
There was a lot of reasons. I could have left before. I stayed there to help him pay rent, and really that was the only thing I was staying for towards the end. And the moment he told me that I could leave, I was happy. He said, please leave, and I said, okay.
Because he was making everybody's life miserable.
Yes. He was...
Well, but I still don't get your position that it was okay for you to leave and stick him with the rent, but it's not okay for him to leave and stick you with the rent, or at least half of it.
I would have stayed there, but he told me that I could leave.
Miss Gonzalez, stop being a baby. 2 20-year-olds, if they're not getting along, don't stay with each other. That's why police come to houses, because people get hot-tempered and nasty stuff that goes on in people's homes when they're not getting along. So you left.
Yeah.
And he paid the rent.
Yeah, he paid the rent.
So,
and he should have continued to pay it until December. Also,
You should have continued to pay it after you left in June. Where did you go?
I went to live with my dad. And...
Well, if you went to live with your dad, then you had plenty of money. You should have given him
No,
half
I
the
did not
rent.
have plenty of money. I had bills.
Listen to me. You should have given him half the rent. Said it didn't work out. We shouldn't live together. I'll give you half the rent.
I have a piece of paper, though, that says he owes me $800 per month for rent and expenses, regardless of whether we're living. It doesn't say not if Zach doesn't live there. It doesn't say any conditions on it. And so that was my guarantee that he would stay there and pay the rent, because he signed a piece of paper saying that he would.
Let me see it. I, Zachary Finney, will give $800 a month for rent or other reasons to Catherine Gonzalez for a period of 1 year from December 1st, 04 to December 1st, 05. What does that mean, sir?
To get the apartment that we moved into, I had a lease that I had prior to living there with my roommates. I had an apartment with them. I moved out, and my other roommate was supposed to take that over. He left, and that went on my credit, so I couldn't get approved. The reason I did that is the apartments asked me to do it so we could get approved to move in there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to move in there.
So this wasn't for her.
It was to get us approved to live there.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
All right, get us back to her. All right. Now, why are they just going after you for the last 2 months of this rent, Miss Gonzalez?
Because my name was on the lease.
So he's not even liable on the lease?
No, but this piece of paper was my guarantee that he would not...
That wasn't your guarantee. That's not the reason it was signed. So the rent is $530 a month?
Yes.
Did you give them notice you were moving out, sir?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I've been paying the rent ever since she moved out. It's September. We had a hurricane hit Louisiana, Katrina, and a hurricane that was going to hit Houston, Rita. Well, I'm an exterminator, and my customers started canceling, and I work off commission. If I don't work, I don't get paid. And I was out of work probably almost 2 weeks, I would say. I asked her for help, and she kept giving me a runaround about why she couldn't help me, so I just left. I wasn't going to stay there.
I got you.
Okay.
Well, in any event, you did have an agreement, and your agreement was each of you would pay half the rent. Is that your agreement when you moved in? And if there were 2 months left remaining on the lease, that means that each of you would be responsible for $530. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, you think it's fair, Mr. Finney, that you pay $530?
No, I don't.
Well, it is. It is, sir. You paid for the 4 months rent in the apartment, but you lived in the apartment for 4 months.
Yes.
And from what I gather from Ms. Gonzalez, it was by mutual understanding that you left. She wasn't happy there. You weren't happy with her there. She was more than happy to leave. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I think it's reasonable that each of you is responsible for the last 2 months that remain on this lease. The next time you decide to set up housekeeping with somebody, you better make sure it's somebody that's going to either stick it out with you, or if they're not going to stick it out with you, then you can afford to pay the rent by yourself. Do you understand? Yeah. It's not his responsibility to pay this entire amount, nor is it yours. Anyway, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $530
versus Taylor. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be...
Mr. Sanderlin, Miss Taylor has a child. You and Miss Taylor were together for a period of time before the child was born. But it appears now at the time that you met, she was already pregnant by someone else, and the child is not yours. According to you, you didn't know that at the time.
Yes, ma'am.
And when the child was born, you put your name on the child's birth certificate and obligated yourself to take care of a boy or a girl?
Girl.
Girl. Very shortly after the child was born, you and Miss Taylor separated, and she went back to the child's father. I assume this gentleman here. According to you, time passed, and you were hauled into court for child support. Had to hire a lawyer. You were already in arrears. They took money out of your salary. Couldn't get that garnishment lifted without a lawyer. So you want Miss Taylor to pay you back for all of your expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition, even after the order was lifted, 2 additional checks were taken out of your pay. Miss Taylor received them and cashed them. You want those 2 back. Let's deal with those 2 first. Miss Taylor, when did you get the last 2 checks?
Beginning of October.
For how much?
$136 apiece.
Why didn't you send them back to Mr. Sanderlin? Is not an answer.
Sorry. I just needed the money, so I cashed it. I felt he signed the birth certificate. You know, it was his obligation, I guess.
Is what you say to me actually the way your mind works?
No.
I just want to know. Is what you just said to me, the response that you knew he wasn't the father of your child. You knew that there was no order anymore. You knew that you were living with the father of your child. And yet you got 2 checks that you knew were sent to you in error. And you needed the money, so you cashed the checks and spent them. I want to know if that's the way your mind works.
That's how I was thinking.
Then you have enough children.
I know that.
Good. Don't make any more. Because, God forbid, you make more, they'll have your mind. And we have enough people just with you that have your mind. That's dishonest.
It is.
So we're going to take care of this payment right off the bat. Mr. Sanderlin, I'm not finished with you yet because I don't think that you resorted to reasonable self-help. Now, how much money did you pay in total for this child that turned out not to be yours?
I don't have an exact figure.
Well, who's supposed to have a figure? Bird?
No.
Me? You're supposed to have a figure.
I would say anywhere between the lines of $1,000 and $3,000.
Well, that's ridiculous, Mr. Sanderline. That's why you got yourself into all this trouble. Where did you think you were coming today? You're coming to court in order for a court to make a financial award to you to pay you back the money that you've paid for child support. So the least you could do is sit down and figure out how much you paid. Not somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000.
Well, whatever it takes to take care of a child from the time of birth up to 3 months.
How many children do you have?
I have none, ma'am.
Sounds perfect to me so far. Money came out of your check. You had a garnishment on your salary. That's what you told me.
$272 between 2 deductions.
Is that the total amount that was taken out of your pay?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then what are you suing for $3,000 for?
For lawyer fees, it would have took a matter of 2 or 3 days in court to have everything cleared up if she had showed up to court.
Just a second. How much was your lawyer?
The first lawyer cost me, I have paperwork on this. This is the ledger from the lawyer stating everything that I paid. That was the first lawyer.
When was the first time you went into court with the lawyer?
I believe it was in April.
So what was this bill in 2004 for?
The bill in 2004?
Yeah.
I hired another lawyer to finish up the case because that lawyer there wanted another $1,000 to go back to court.
Sir, how many times have you been involved in court proceedings, not involving this child?
Maybe once or twice.
I want to see a bill for the lawyer. On this case, Mr. Sanderline. On this case, not your other problems. On this case.
This is it right here?
I don't believe it.
It has right at the top, Sanderland versus Taylor.
2002.
It goes all the way down to 2004.
2002 is when you said you went to court. Let me see any communication from your lawyer, a letter, with regard to this case.
Your Honor, may I speak?
No. Now, Ms. Taylor, when Mr. Sanderline went into court, allegedly in 2002, did you go into court with him?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to the judge?
I told him that he wasn't the father, and I didn't want child support.
Were you receiving welfare?
No. I don't think at the time.
In the last 4 years, were you receiving welfare?
Yes, I went down and applied for insurance.
Were you receiving welfare?
Yes. Can I say something?
Uh-huh.
When they asked who the father was, they asked household members and who the father was. I never put down John. I always told them it was Daniel, and then I had a paternity test. I showed them the paternity test. I never said that it was John.
You didn't tell him that he was not the father when you met him, right?
Right.
And when he put his name on the birth certificate when the child was born in the hospital, you said, oh, she looks like you, or she looks like me, or she looks like your mother, or she looks like me. You didn't tell him that he wasn't the father, did you?
No.
That was dishonest, because what you say in your answer was very dishonest. You say he should have done the math, right?
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend Christina Taylor owes for the return of child support and attorney fees. John claims Christina lied about the paternity of her child.
I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
May I approach? Well, first off, me and Christina have been together since 2 months after when this baby was born.
I don't care.
Mr. Sanderline had nothing to do with her life or whatsoever.
Do you see my mouth moving?
I see her, yes, ma'am.
What do you have to contribute to this case?
The only thing I got to say is Christina had nothing to do with the court proceedings. She told the judge she got the paternity test stating John Sanderwood was not the father. We proved to the court he wasn't, and that should have been that.
Listen
now, any attorney's fees that he may have paid...
I'm speaking. Now, listen to me very carefully. Are you married?
No, ma'am.
Your girlfriend was dishonest because when she wasn't with you, she was looking for somebody else to nail for this child. If she wasn't, she would have told him right away that he wasn't the father of this child, and I guarantee you he wouldn't have put his name on the birth certificate. She was looking for somebody to pick up the slack because I don't know where you were, but you weren't together. That's number one. Number two, since you are now together, assume that you don't keep secrets from each other.
No.
That when she received these 2 checks in the amount of $136 that she told you about him?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's the only part I feel
just
like
answer.
we've done wrong.
Just answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And you told her it was wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
And she did it anyway.
Yes, we both did it, not just her alone. We were in hard financial times at the time, and I disagreed at first, but in the end, we both did it together. It wasn't her decision.
I'm glad. Now I see. Do you have any children other than this one child?
Yes, a child, son, Zach. Yeah. A son as well, yes.
You got enough children, too. Sit down. It all started with a lie, Miss Taylor. Your lie. That's why he had all this trouble. Because if you had told him right from the get-go, listen, I love you, I want to be with you, but this child isn't yours. If you could open your heart up to a child that isn't yours, that's fine. Then he would have had a choice. He would have been able to say, listen, not my child, but I love you. I want to be able to be a family. If I choose to put my name on the birth certificate and accept that responsibility, that's my choice. You lied in 2002. You lied in 2001. You lied in 2005 when you took his check that you shouldn't have. Well, that says a great deal about your character. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Versus Resnikoff, step forward.
25-year-old Chad Navarro is suing the mother of his daughter, 23-year-old Jennifer Resnikoff, for stealing money from his bank account. Chad claims Jennifer used the money to buy drugs.
Mr. Navarro, you and Ms. Resnikoff lived together for a period of time, and you also have a child together.
Yes.
According to your complaint, when you were living together, you gave Ms. Resnikoff the ability to withdraw money from your bank account. She had access to your bank account, and that was with your permission to cover certain bills.
Yes.
It is your claim that she drained your bank account in order to purchase drugs.
Yes.
And you want her to reimburse you for the amount that she took without your authorization to purchase drugs. Ms. Resnikoff says that she did, in fact, withdraw the money from your bank account. It was a bank account that you gave her access to. She had withdrawn money in the past for household items, but that you had not given her sufficient money to take care of your child, and she purchased items for your child, and that was the reason that she took the money out of the bank. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Resnikoff. When did Mr. Navarro give you access to the bank account?
I'd say probably about 4 months after we first met.
Give me the month and the year.
Approximately, I would say March of 2002, approximately.
So from March of 2002 until what date did you have access to the bank account?
Till we broke up.
Which was when?
Which was in August of this year.
During what months do you claim that she withdrew, without your permission, the bulk of the money, over $3,000?
Yeah.
September and October of what year?
5.
And when did the two of you break up?
We broke up maybe at the end of September.
October. Not August, it was October.
When was the last time you lived with Miss Resnikoff?
I don't really remember the dates. You know, I don't remember.
Was it 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago?
It was about a month, maybe 2 weeks ago.
I moved in with my brother 3.5 weeks ago, thank you.
That's not August.
Well, I was saying that in August and October she was taking the money out. In 8 and 9. Oh, August and September. Okay.
Can I see your bank statement? How old is your baby?
11 months, ma'am.
Where is the baby?
She is here.
Who does she live with?
Me.
Are you talking, sir, about where it says ATM withdrawals?
Yes. She had the card. She took it out of the mail.
What'd you spend all this money on?
My baby.
Baloney.
No, really. I have a witness that was there most of the times that I went out and purchased stuff.
Well, just a second. Who gave you the authority to do that?
Well, I thought, seeing that I was on the account, that I could access it without this being a problem.
You spent over $3,000 in a 30-day period on your baby?
I don't think it was $3,000.
Yeah?
Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
Right on the back page, you can see the checks that she wrote to cash. So, I mean, why would she write it to cash if she was just buying the stuff for the baby?
Listen,
she could have just went there.
Listen to me. It's baloney. I just said to you, it's baloney.
I was just saying, sorry.
Yeah, it's baloney. My question to you, Mr. Navarro, is something that, to me, is more serious than $3,000 out of your bank account. You have a son or a daughter with this lady?
Daughter.
And you separated, and she took the baby?
Yes.
And you say she's got a drug problem?
She's with her brother right now, and
so
she's been clean.
How do you know that?
Because I trust her brother. Her brother's my best friend, and I trust him. And
you trust him to what?
He's there all day.
Take your hands out of your pockets.
He's there all day.
Well,
and
why? He doesn't work?
No, he does work. He does eBay.
What do you mean he does eBay?
eBay, he sells stuff on eBay.
Where does he get the stuff he sells on eBay?
He buys it offline and then sells it, like laptop computers and stuff like that.
Where does he get the money from to buy the stuff, sir?
Where does he get it? From eBay. He posts the stuff, he gets the money, and then he uses the money to buy the stuff again. You know what I mean? That's how...
Do I know what you mean? I know what you're telling me. I know what you're telling me. What do you do for a living?
Me? I'm a warehouse manager.
Let me tell you this, Mr. Navarro. If somebody has a $3,000 a month drug habit, which is what you're alleging, you don't get over a $3,000 a month drug habit unless you go into an inpatient facility for a long time. And I wouldn't believe my best friend, who makes his money in some unorthodox way, that his sister is clean. You following me, sir?
Yes.
That's what I would worry about. Not the fact that she took this money out of a bank account that you gave her access to, that she's had access to for 3 years. You should have been watching the store a little more carefully. Do you understand? Yeah. What I would worry about is my 11-month-old child, if you believe that she was using drugs, which is very easy to find out. You go to court, you file for custody of your child, they take her in, they do a drug test on her hair. They do a hair follicle test, and the hair follicle test will show what kind of drugs she'd been doing over the last year, in what amount, and in what frequency. Not that she used drugs the day before, but it will show a pattern of drug use. That's what you do. Do you understand? If that's what you think.
Well, she even admitted to me.
Have you done that?
What? No.
Take custody of your daughter?
No.
Well, then I hardly believe, sir, that a man, the only one in this whole family of 3, she, her brother, and you, the only one who works, who has a steady source of income for a long time, you're the only one who can manage to hold it together, has not done that. I said, it's okay for you. You can go live with your brother. You and your drug habit, and your brother and his unorthodox business can all go live together, and I'll do what I have to do. That's not what a responsible person does, Mr. Navarro. Responsible person doesn't leave an 11-month-old child with someone who had a $3,000 a month drug habit. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I did not have a drug habit. I had admitted to him that I had tried certain drugs, which I am not proud of.
Just a second. Where did you get them?
Where did I get them?
No, I asked the question. Don't take time to think of the answer. Where did you get them?
From his...
He gave them to you for nothing, or did you pay for them?
I paid for them.
Out of this money?
Part of it, yes, but not $3,000 worth.
I don't care if it was 20 cents. She says she told you she got the drugs from your...
There was an intervention that we had, and everybody came over, and she admitted that she was doing the drugs, and she did not
just told me
she
just told me she was doing drugs.
But it was more than that, what you admitted.
Listen
it
to
wasn't
me.
only that.
Listen, please. I believe if she admits to a little, she used a lot. My problem with you, Mr. Navarro, is when you go to court and seek custody of your daughter, they will do a drug test on her mother. And I guarantee you that if it's established that she's been using drugs, the chances of you getting custody of your child, if you don't do drugs...
No. The thing is, if I do that, she said she would run, so...
She said she'll run?
Yeah.
Mr. Navarro, that's what they all say. That's what you're supposed to do if you feel as if your child is at risk. Do you understand?
Yes.
And then, if you have custody of your daughter, that gives her an opportunity to get a job, which now she doesn't have, right?
No.
And once she gets a job, you might get some of this money back. Won't be in the form of this, it'll be in the form of child support that you'll have to pay you to help take care of your daughter. You get it?
Yep.
That would be my concern, sir. My 11-month-old would be my concern. Is it yours?
Yes.
Good. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties versus Wall. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
Mr. Hartman owes you some money for rent. She was a friend of yours who you were very nice to. And then she went and found herself a boyfriend, I assume this young man right here. And things went downhill from there. She, according to you, didn't pay you back the money she owed you. She never paid you for rent or security deposit when she moved into your apartment. She says that as soon as she found a boyfriend, you went ballistic, started to harass her. How do you know Miss Wall, Mr. Hart?
We had met at work.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a pharmacist.
And you?
I'm a photo center manager for the same company.
How old are you?
I'm 52.
And you?
33.
That's not a good match. So according to you, Mr. Hart, you became friends, and you started to travel and go gambling together.
Correct.
When was that?
We started back in November of '04 and continued throughout 2005.
To where?
Verona Indian Reservation, which is in North County of San Diego.
Did you ever have anything other than a friendly relationship with Miss Wall? A romantic relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
When did that begin?
March of 2005.
When was the first alleged loan you made to her?
In February.
Tell me about it.
Well, we'd go to the casinos, and she'd come up to me and ask me if she could borrow some money. You know, she had already lost the money that she had brought up there.
She had always brought and used her own money and never asked for a couple of dollars from you prior to February of 2005?
Never asked. If I was winning or something, I would give her extra money.
So what happened in February of 2005, sir?
And she would come to me and, you know...
No, not she would come to me. On February 12th, 2005, on February 8th, 2005, we were gambling at the Indian Reservation. She came up to me and said, do you understand what you do in court, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So tell me what happened in February 2005 that changed from the way you were doing business with Miss Wall from November 2004 until February 2005.
She would come to me more frequently and ask for money.
Yes, and?
So I loaned it to her.
Mr. Hart, we're not on the same page, sir.
Okay.
You're a heartbroken guy, and I'm waiting for a lawsuit. So let's forget about the gambling money.
Okay, we'll forget about it.
Good. Let's go to the next amount of money that you say Miss Wall owes you.
Okay.
Go.
On May 5th of 2005, I got an urgent voicemail message from her stating that she needed to move out of her place where she was residing at the time, a condo, because of a mold problem. So she'd asked me if she could move into my house.
And you said?
Based on some difficulty decisions that I had to make due to the fact that we had just semi-broken up, I have an email about that relationship where she had told me she was in love with somebody else then.
Okay, so she told you that she was involved with somebody else.
Correct.
And that precipitated the breakup.
We were still seeing each other. It was just on a different basis.
Okay. So she called you
May 5th.
2005 and said, I need a place to stay. And you said?
I said yes. She could come rent a room for me. And I moved my stuff out of the master bedroom to the upstairs, and that would give her room for both her and her son to move into my house.
What financial arrangement did you make with her?
We signed a rental agreement.
I'd like to see it.
Now, I don't have the original. Attached to this is the subpoena that I had subpoenaed her with. To get the original, this is the rough draft only.
Do you have the agreement?
No, I do not. It was null and void. I had it at one point in time, but he said forget about it. He revised the amount of rent, and I have proof of that.
See.
This is July 18th, a letter from Mr. Hart requesting rent in a total amount, which varies from what he's now requesting.
July 18th. When did you move in May?
Yes.
How long did you stay?
I stayed for until July the 7th.
So you are acknowledging, Ms. Wall, that you agreed to pay rent?
No, he actually changed and voided that and said that he wanted me to hold on to the money to help out in assistance for my hardship and situation.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. You initially agreed to pay rent. When did you agree to pay rent?
May the 16th.
And in what amount did you agree that the rent would be?
$500.
A month?
Per month.
Good. All right. I knew I'd get the truth out of you, madam, one way or another.
Well, it went from rent to increase of utilities and water was all he was
Whatever. Did you pay May's rent?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because he told me that due to my financial hardship... that
How did he know about your
excessive amount.
financial hardship, Miss Wall?
Because we had spoken throughout the whole year regarding my disability and regarding...
What's the nature of your disability?
I have a back injury, and I was out on disability since February, of the beginning of the year.
Fine. You lived there in June. Did you pay any rent?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because he clearly stated that it wasn't about the money, that he did not need me to pay that.
Well, at some point he said, I want you to pay rent.
He refused to accept it.
Well, he's asking for it now.
Yes.
Good. So, sir, how much did you ultimately come to terms with regard to rent?
Well, she said that she offered to pay me money. That offer, I've never received that offer, Your Honor.
Okay. So you just don't want her to make a fool out of you. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
I
got it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You know.
Lover Shauna Wall for rent and for several unpaid loans. Richard claims Shauna used him.
Listen to me, Mr. Hart. But for the fact that you had had a relationship with Miss Wall and still cared for her, you would not have invited her to come into your home when she was in this period of distress. That would be a fair statement? You weren't doing it for the money.
Correct. I was doing it for her and her son. Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Do you have a tenant now in the room?
No, ma'am.
Who do you live there with?
My son.
Good. And you're going to keep it uncomplicated, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. According to what I read in your complaint, sir, she lived there almost 3 months, but at some point you went away on a trip, and when you came home, you found she had a new boyfriend.
Correct.
Is this boyfriend?
Yes.
How did you know she had a new boyfriend?
Because of the living situation, I gave her the master bedroom, and when I moved upstairs, there's no closet, so my clothes were still downstairs in the master bedroom, and one morning when I had got up to go into the room, the door was locked. So that morning when she finally got up, she said that she had an old-time friend that had brought her home that evening, and that was why the door was locked and I couldn't get to my clothes.
What's his name?
Andy.
Andy what?
Lands.
What does he do for a living?
He's a correction officer.
And when did you meet him?
In July.
July what?
The 1st of July.
You have an email you said that she sent you sometime prior to May or around May indicating that she was involved with somebody else. Do you have a copy of that?
Yes, ma'am. It's the bottom section of this. It's a forwarded email.
Who were you in love with in May?
That would have been Dwayne.
That would have been Dwayne.
Yes.
Watch your heart. Got it? Good. Okay. Miss Wall, didn't you think it was bad form to bring this gentleman home with you to Mr. Hart's house?
I did not, because we had no previous arrangements on anyone coming to the house.
I said, didn't you think it was bad form? I didn't ask you whether there were any rules. I asked you whether or not you thought it was bad form.
Considering my
You were not just a tenant. You weren't paying any rent, because if you were just a tenant, they would have thrown you out on the street, right?
Correct.
So you were there in Mr. Hart's house because he had feelings for you. He had feelings for you, and are you following where I'm going, sir? Good. So if you know that this gentleman, who you've known for well over a year, year and a half, and you know that he has feelings for you, because I've read your email, apologizing for losing your heart to Dwayne in May. Even after that, he said, yeah, you're in trouble. I care about you. Come to the house. You don't have money for rent. I'll let it slide for a while. You don't have money for utilities, I'll let it slide for a while. And you repay him. And you know, because women know those things, because you're not 12, that he has feelings for you, and you bring him home to sleep in your bed. That's bad form. That's not a nice person. It's not somebody that I would like to stake my future with.
Well, Your Honor...
Sir, you understand? Yes. Because somebody who has that kind of character, and I just know her for 10 minutes, did it to him, did it to Dwayne, and in the appropriate time, sir, she's going to do it to you. Got it? That's what I know. That's why I'm here. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step. In the matter of Misri versus Kassim. Step forward.
21-year-old Jimmy Misri is suing his former friend, 21-year-old Rafael Rafi Kassim, for damaging his car while playing a prank.
Mr. Misri, according to your complaint, the defendant, who used to be a friend of yours, is he still a friend of yours?
No, not really. I'm sorry. Not really. Somewhat, like, we're friendly, but, you know, there's always this little altercation between us. Understand? We're going to be very
Is he still your friend?
No.
When was the last time you saw Mr. Kassim?
Probably a few weeks ago.
Where did you see him?
I'm really not too sure.
Try not to think of an answer that you think I'm going to like. Okay. Try just to speak the truth. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Good. Try to speak the truth, then we won't have any trouble, Mr. Misri.
No problem.
If you don't, we're going to have a lot of trouble. Do we understand each other?
100%.
Okay, good. When was the last time you saw him, Mr. Kassim?
Common parties, so we have common friends, you know, and probably...
When was the last time you saw him?
Probably around 2 weeks ago.
Where?
In Rutgers.
Are you in school?
Yes.
And you?
I don't go to school.
Did you go to Rutgers?
Yes.
When?
Last year.
Did you graduate?
No, I didn't.
What are you doing now?
I work for a wholesale company.
When did this incident happen with your car?
The 17th.
Of what?
Of November.
According to the complaint that you filed, Mr. Kassim played a little joke on you with your car, and the car was damaged. You want him to pay for the damage to the car.
Correct.
Take your hands out of your pockets.
I'm sorry.
Tell me about this practical joke that you played and why, Mr. Kassim.
We went to a party. I was a designated driver that night, trying to do the responsible thing. I go into the party. You know, I'm making friends, whatever. I start hooking up with this girl, and later that night I see Jimmy hooking up with the same girl. I got pretty upset, and I hid his car from him. And
where did you hide the car?
Asbury Park.
So you left the party?
I left the party and came back to the party, but avoided Jimmy that night.
You left the party?
Correct.
And you took his car?
Correct.
And you parked it how far away from where the party was?
A few miles.
Who did you go in the car with?
No one. Someone followed me there.
Who followed you?
My friend Isaac.
And what did you do after you parked the car?
Oh, sorry. My bad.
What did you do after you parked the car in Asbury Park?
I came back to the party.
And then?
Avoided Jimmy the rest of the night.
Avoided him?
Yes, because I didn't want him to know where it was. Eventually, I answered his call. He kept calling me.
You mean he had left the party?
Oh, no, he was at the party.
Well, what do you mean you avoided his calls? How big a party was this?
It was a rather large party.
So he was calling you on his cell phone?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I finally, you know, say he needs a ride home, whatever. Let's end the joke now. And we went and got his car and take him home. That was it.
And?
Oh, so really the ride home, I don't remember so well because I was drinking a lot that night. Then in the morning, I saw my car in my driveway and I saw the dent scratch. I called him up. I was like, Raph, listen, what are you doing? The car is whatever. And he's like, I don't know. And then I was a little mad, you know. My girl's missing. I have pictures. Should I show the pictures? Want to see them? By the way, Your Honor, you look beautiful.
Don't
suck up. Don't suck up. Forget it.
Because it'll be the fastest way for you out the door, sir.
I'm sorry.
The fastest way for you out the door. What year college did you finish?
My junior year.
Why did you leave?
I got offered a good job, so. I know. I should go finish up. Everyone's telling me to. But I might finish night school.
Before you act like a wise guy, you have to exercise good judgment. And good judgment is not leaving college voluntarily, needing 2 semesters at school because you got a good job.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Could I see a copy of your police report, please?
There wasn't one filed.
Why not?
Because I didn't really think of it like that. I figured he was going to pay me, and I wasn't in the mood for the hassles, I guess.
Your Honor, I didn't really examine the car before I got in that night, so I don't know when these damages could have occurred. They even could have occurred on while it was at the party.
You're absolutely right, sir.
I have no idea.
Listen to me, Mr. Cassine.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
The problem is you put yourself in a position to be accused of damage that could have been caused at the party. It could have been caused when you parked the car in Asbury Park. Now, did you park for any particular reason?
Just a place that he wouldn't be able to find it.
Was it a deserted area?
It is sort of a deserted area.
What's wrong with the two front grills, sir?
They're missing.
Oh, they're missing.
Oh, yeah, look in the front. You see the
I
front?
mean, I can't see with this kind of picture.
No, you see where those holes are?
Yes.
On the picture? So there's usually these lines, like a normal, you know a BMW, how they have the lines in the grill?
I don't have a BMW.
Yeah, I don't know, I figured maybe you saw one or something. I don't know.
No, I never looked at the grill. But what's this?
That's a dent on the side. Basically, you put it in a plate. It's like taking my car, putting it in harm's way. You understand what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I'll just keep drinking my water.
What I'm saying is you're not accusing him with regard to the damage to the side of the car, only to the two front grills. Is that correct?
No. I want to also accuse him of the side because...
I don't have an estimate for that.
No, it was actually included in that estimate. The person that gave me the estimate, I knew him, so I asked him to give me a good price on it. So instead of replacing the piece, he's going to pull out the dent for me and polish it up to make it look nice, you know? I'm not trying to put him out of house and home, you know? I just want him to pay for what he did.
Judged for the plaintiff in the amount of $910. You know, you ever watch... Enough with the water, please.
You know what? I figured if I drink it, I won't talk.
Stay in school. Stay in school.
You think I should go back?
Do I have to... Listen to me. This is not a give and take, Mr. Misery. I'm suggesting to you stay in school. Aside from the fact that wise guys usually, at the end of the day, don't wind up to be happy people.
Oh, no. I'm not a wise guy. I'm really not.
Yes, you are.
Why?
Yes, you are. However, it's not a give and take.
No.
And maybe you have diabetes or something. You keep drinking a lot of water. I would have yourself your bladder checked.
My ADD.
You guys have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Rogers, you and the defendant were neighbors. You are no longer neighbors. I believe she has moved. However, while you were neighbors, it is your claim that Ms. Caro shot one of your dogs that had been on her property. There were substantial veterinary bills. I assume that this is the dog, and you want Ms. Caro to pay those bills. Ms. Caro says that for the time that she lived as your neighbor, she was constantly besieged by your dogs that would get loose and come on her property. She had warned you several times that she was frightened by some of the dogs. She had told the police, she had told animal control, and yet the dogs continued to come on her property. And she was perfectly justified on that day in shooting your dog because the dog had been aggressive towards her and a 2-week-old colt that she was taking care of. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the case. Tell me about the kind of property you live on, Miss Rogers.
It's a horse property, multiple acres. We have horses and dogs, and are with our horses many times, and you can...
It's not show and tell yet.
Okay.
How many dogs do you have?
We have 4.
Did you ever have more?
Well, they've had deceased, all that kind of stuff. We had to put...
During the time that Miss Carroll was your neighbor, did there ever come a time that you had 9 dogs?
No.
4 was the most that you had at the time?
At that time, yes.
What kind of dogs do you have?
A black lab Dalmatian mix, 2 Queensland Heelers, and a Border Collie.
When did you move into this property?
About 5 years ago.
When did you move into the property?
About 10 years ago.
So you lived there before Miss Rogers moved in?
Yes.
Did you own the property?
Yes.
And do you own the property?
No, it's my family's property.
Okay. When for the first time, Miss Rogers, did Miss Caro complain to you that your dogs were coming on her property?
She never complained directly to us. She filed a restraining order against us, which she has with her. That was declined.
What was the nature of the restraining order that she filed?
That if one of our dogs were to go onto her property, that she would shoot it, and along with it, she would shoot us.
When did she file that restraining order, Miss Rogers?
I believe like 2 years ago.
So that you were on notice 2 years ago that your dogs were going on her property?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's what I'm trying to get to. Do you understand? You have a certain responsibility. I'm not getting to whether she had a right to use that kind of force against your dog, but you have a responsibility to your dogs because they don't know boundaries and fence. You have a responsibility as a pet owner to ensure that once you're on notice that there's a neighbor that doesn't like your dogs roaming around their property, to keep your dogs from roaming around her property. That's your responsibility as a good pet owner, to keep them safe. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Good. Can I see the complaint that you filed? She says that you have it with you. Thank you. Did you just say to me that she said she's going to shoot the dog and shoot you? Mm-hmm. That's not what she says at all. She says that if the defendant or his children trespass on our property while chasing one of their dogs, they could be hurt in the crossfire. She doesn't say she's going to shoot you. She says she's going to shoot your dogs if they come on her property. And if you're there, you may get hurt. Doesn't say she's going to aim and shoot at you. Ms. Rogers, right?
Yes, but it's intentionally the same thing.
No, it isn't. It's saying she doesn't want to hurt you, but if you come on her property chasing after your dogs, and she doesn't want you to get caught in the crossfire. So she's putting you on notice. Now, is this the first complaint that you made with regard to the dogs coming on your property?
It was 01, December of 01 was possibly the first.
May I see it, please? At the time you filed this one, which is in 2002, you said that they had 8 dogs.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they have 8 dogs at that time?
They had 8 or 9. They claimed that they belonged to friends or they were visiting, but I was there 24 hours a day with my horse business and outside, and the dogs were there constantly.
Who's Mr.
My stepfather.
He owned a pit bull?
No, this is the acclaimed pit bull.
How old is that dog?
He's 4.5.
Is that the dog that you identified as a pit bull?
Yes, ma'am.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, not a pit bull.
When he was younger, he looked a bit more.
Not a pit bull.
Okay.
But this complaint is March of 2002. Seems to me that at least part of your problem from the very beginning was the dog's barking.
That was the very beginning, yes. And they were convicted of 7 counts of no Ventura County Court and convicted.
Did you pay a fine?
My family did, yes.
How much of a fine?
I'm not exactly sure. I think $2,000.
Well, that's a pretty stiff fine, so you must have been notified many times if this was a problem.
I guess so.
Why didn't you take care of it?
We had our dogs debarked, put to sleep.
Why don't you just either find them new homes or keep them in the house?
We did, but anytime they would go out, she would complain about them.
No.
We live on property,
Listen,
there's coyotes.
listen to me. That's not a $2,000 fine. That's baloney. That's baloney.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Are you trying to...
Neighbor, Diana Carroll, shot her dog while he was running across her property. Diana says Rihanna had been put on notice.
Madam, you're supposed to be a good parent to your pets. You're not supposed to have them debarked. You're not supposed to put them through that. You're not supposed to kill them.
That's why...
Kill them, you put them in the house. And if you have too many dogs to keep in the house, then you find good homes for them.
See, here's the thing, that we all work and go to school, and so during the daytime, we're all trying to make a living to be able to own our property, and we live on a large acreage that we should be allowed to have dogs, and they should be able to play.
Madam, 4 dogs is too many dogs for you. If everybody's out working and trying to earn a living, that's a very good thing. Then get a pet. That's 1 dog that you keep in the house. What do you need 8 for?
Because big dogs can't be in the house anyways all the time.
A big dog can be in the house while you're out working. 1, not 8. So your response, instead of finding good homes for some of your dogs, you put them down?
No,
what are you?
we
Your
didn't
family's a
put
bunch of idiots.
We didn't put them down. They had tumors in their necks from wearing bark collars because that's what we were required to by the city of Moore Park.
Listen to me. Are you trying to garner sympathy from me?
No.
You are not. You are not a good mother. Or your father is not a good father, or your mother is not a good mother. You don't put bark collars on them. If you've been notified by the county that your dogs are creating a nuisance, which you clearly had to have been notified numerous times if you got a $2,000 fine, then what you do is you find good homes for all but one of your favorite dogs, and you keep that dog in the house while you and your family are out working. That's what people do. They don't put dog collars on that create tumors, that have to have surgery, that have to be put down. You think that that's her fault? That's not. That's your fault. And your father's fault. And whoever else live in your house. If you have a pet, you have to act responsibly with that pet. And if your pet is disturbing other people, that's not her fault. That's your fault. Do you understand? Now, you're complaining that your dog got shot on her property. Now I want to hear the day that your dog got shot. What happened?
It was April 29th in the morning. I was out at the barn with my 2-week-old filly. She was playing loose, and she only weighs 80 pounds. The dog is 50 plus. I heard barking coming from across the arena, and I noticed that it was a little closer than usual. So I looked up, and I saw their black lab cross charging towards my filly. This is the same dog that has on a prior occasion chased the horse that I was riding across the arena and up towards the barn. So I ran in, got the gun. When I came out, he was stalking the little filly. I screamed at the dog. I shot twice because he turned towards me and was charging me.
How close were you to the dog when you shot?
Approximately 30 feet on the first shot. The second was more like 20-ish.
So The dog advanced towards you between the first and the second shot. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Did either of those two shots hit the dog?
One or the other. At some point, yes.
And then what happened?
The dog fell, turned around, ran back down the arena, fell again, and went to the fence, and I lost sight of him.
After the dog turned around and started to run, did you shoot again?
No, I'd fired twice. And those were the 2 rounds that the police officer confiscated.
Were you cited at any time for this incident?
No, ma'am.
Okay. April 29th. Were you at home?
Yes, I was.
Go ahead.
My dog had gotten loose when I had taken him for a walk, and he went chasing after a coyote.
Now, when you say the dog had gotten loose, did you walk the dog with a leash?
Of course.
Where?
In our front yard. I was taking him to go to the bathroom because he was in the house. There was a coyote running through. He ran onto her property chasing a coyote. I heard him bark. I ran.
Just a second. When the dog came onto your property, did the dog have a leash?
No. The dog was rarely on a leash.
Of course. What happened to the leash?
It might have broken off. He went running off. I'm not quite sure what happened, but he came back with no leash on.
The leash fairy took the leash. Go ahead.
He went running over there. I chased him to the fence, called him, and he was shot running back towards me. In my medical reports from the vet, it states that. It states it in the police report that he was shot going away. And I have
just a second. Who said he was shot going away?
In the police report.
Well,
and
let me see. Just a second. Let me see the police report. Well, Miss Carroll, I must tell you that according to this, you say you fired a single shot at the dog about 5 yards but missed. The dog then ran away from Carroll and she fired the gun a second time. That's what the police reported.
I spoke to the officer,
Yes.
but I didn't tell him that.
Well, that's what the police officer reported that you said. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
The second round struck the dog in the rear area of the body and caused the dog to fall down. The distance between Carroll and where the dog was shot was approximately 25 yards. You're a good shot.
I haven't shot that gun for 15 years, and I didn't shoot it at 25 yards.
And you didn't tell the police that you were out walking your dog on a leash and it got away from you and was chasing a coyote. Rogers, according to the police report, told us that Moose got out of his enclosure and started. Moose eventually ran into the neighbor's property. How come you didn't tell the police about this coyote?
Well, when it all happened, I was extremely scared and agitated because my dog was like bleeding to death. I was freaking out. I couldn't keep my composure. I was not very sane.
Are you saner today? Ms. Rogers, you and your family have been on notice for years that it is a substantial problem with your dogs going on her property. And it was your responsibility as a pet owner to keep your dog from going on her property and putting your dog in harm's way. That's what you did.
And
not her.
We
Not her.
have
You.
tried very
No,
hardly
no.
to, but a couple occasions in 5 years.
That's
is
more than a
nothing.
couple of occasions.
A
This is
handful.
more than a couple of occasions. How's the dog now?
He's doing a lot better. He's still lame in both of his legs and can't really run and play that much. I have the vet reports here stating where the bullets entered and all that kind of stuff. There was one bullet still lodged, I have it right here, in his leg that they recovered out of the leg, his front leg. And I had x-rays that I brought to show you what happened with the 2 bullets, that one entered the back leg and one entered the front leg.
Did the one that entered the front leg enter from front to back or back to front?
Back to front.
Can I see that, please? Thank you. What you're talking about, the first entered the caudal rear-facing aspect of his forelimb. Is that what you mean? And according to the report by the veterinary hospital, both wounds are consistent with being shot from behind, most likely as Moose was running away from the shooter. Is it possible that that's what happened?
Between the first shot and the second shot, he was closer. Had he wiggled, jumped, or moved, that's possible.
Okay. When did you sell your property?
It closed August 15th of this year. Closed escrow.
Where did you go?
Somas, 10 miles down the road.
Why?
To get away from the fiasco next door.
How much was your profit on the property?
Hmm.
Substantial. You
Yes.
had it 10 years?
Yes.
And how much did you spend on the new property?
We're building a house. By the time we build the house, we'll probably have a chunk of mortgage.
Okay. And you're still there?
Yes.
Why do you think they moved?
I don't know. They wanted to move. They might have wanted different horse property. They might have wanted to get away from a family setting and be more out on their own.
Ms. Rogers, while I think it's very difficult to pick up a gun and to shoot an animal, she has certainly documented her fear of your dogs for the last 4 years. So she might have been afraid, and she reacted to that. I don't know whether I could have or anybody else could have done that. The question is, was she legitimately within her rights after having put you on notice that she was afraid of your dogs and that her animals, while on her property, were frightened by your dogs? Was she within her rights to shoot your dog? Ms. Rogers, I believe that you had a responsibility to keep your dogs corralled on your own property. And Miss Carroll, who had a young horse, 2 weeks old, was frightened of this dog, because your dog's a big dog. She was frightened, and she reacted to that. I don't think she's responsible for your vet bills. I think you and your family are responsible for your vet bills. And I believe her when she says that the reason that her family put the family horse farm, which they've had far longer than you've lived there, up on the market, when your family became enough of a nuisance, as documented by the county who fined you $2,000, that she just couldn't take it anymore and said, life is too short. I want to go someplace where it's calmer, where I'm not going to have this kind of aggravation. Well, that's really outrageous of you and your family. If you and your family are in the business of working, trying to support yourselves, trying to make a living, that's terrific. Then you have no right to have 4 dogs or 8 dogs or 9 dogs. You should have one pet, one family pet that you keep in your house when you're gone, so that that pet doesn't disturb neighbors and doesn't have an opportunity to get out. Aside from that, I don't believe your story that you were walking the dog on a leash, because your dogs don't walk on a leash. And if you were walking the dog on a leash and it got away from you because it pulled you, it would have had the leash. And when she shot the dog, it didn't have a leash. So that's a lot of who shot John, that you were walking the dog on a leash. It's a lot of baloney, along with a lot of other things that you told me today. Because when I asked you how many dogs you had while she was living there and you were neighbors, you said 4. That's not true. You had more than 4 that were at any given time living at your house. More like 8. So that also is not true. So as a pet owner, you have a responsibility to keep that dog safe, and you didn't do that. So you bear your own responsibility for the injury. Unfortunately, the dog had to suffer because you were not a good mother. That's all. Step out. Case is dismissed. On this one.
I'm ready.
Ms. Bowen, the defendant is the wife.
Correct, Your Honor.
Of your soon-to-be ex-husband.
Correct, Your Honor.
And this would be?
The ex-husband.
Prize. And according to your complaint, the two of them got back together again, really unbeknownst to you.
Correct.
And you claim that Miss Hill destroyed some of your property.
Correct, Your Honor.
She got into your house and destroyed some of your property while you were away. And in addition, you claim that she used your credit card without your permission.
Correct.
Ms. Hill says that all of your property is in 49 boxes in the garage. All you have to do is make it your business to come over there and pick it up. She destroyed nothing of yours. She is counterclaiming because she says that you stirred up some old trouble that she had with the Child Protective Services by calling Child Protective Services on her recently. Because I gather that when you were divorced, he got custody of the children.
Yes, he did.
Because there was some problem that you had with caring for the children. Now that they want to go back and live together, she says you called Child Protective Services to stir up the old trouble. She's counterclaiming for that. And she also says that you got back into the house somehow and destroyed some of her property when she was in the house that was your house.
Correct.
And you were away.
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Barely, but I got it.
How many times has he been married?
Twice.
Just these 2 times?
Yes.
Miss Bowen, how many times have you been married?
6.
6 times? He's number 6?
Yes.
Are the other ones all alive?
No.
Some of them gone?
Yes.
How many gone?
1.
Did the one die while you were married?
No.
So you divorced them all? So you're not a stranger to this
Correct.
process? Okay. How long were you married to him?
7 years.
How long were you married to him?
12.
Okay. Tell me about the theft of the property first and the disposal of your property that you say she took from the house. Where were you?
We had been to court that day for domestic violence case. I had filed a domestic violence case against Mr. Bowen, my ex-husband. And Ken had a lawyer. I didn't have a lawyer. I had a bruise on my hand that he had put on my hand.
This isn't about that.
Yeah.
This is about the property.
Okay. And anyway, in that day, after court, the judge threw both cases out. So they beat me to the house. And she had broken my dolls as soon as I walked in the door, right in front of me, and lamps. I had bought my son a lamp for Christmas and broke my porcelain dolls. I had a 3-foot tall porcelain doll my son gave over $200 for. I had a 1940s crybaby doll that belonged to my Down syndrome sister who had passed away a few years ago.
Now, when you say that they beat you to the house, who was living in the marital home at that time?
I was.
What about her?
She's in a motel.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You were in a motel. The two of you were living together despite these acts of alleged domestic violence against each other. You were living in the same house. Is that right?
For a few days.
What were you doing in a motel?
When the children called me and the father called me, my little girl was having some mental problems, and I talked to her also on the phone, and she was a mess. So he asked me to come down to help him with the kids.
And you were staying in a motel?
When I got here.
And what was the plan?
I was going to take him to school. He was going to work out whatever it was to work out between him and her. I have nothing to do with that part of it. I came down here only because of my children. Your Honor, I haven't seen them in a few years, and this was a breakthrough for me. And you better believe I came down.
All right.
Can I answer you, Your Honor? She hadn't called them in 5 years,
Yes,
Your Honor.
yes,
5 years. Called her kids. Okay. I took care of her kids and homeschooled them.
Okay. Miss Bowen, was anybody else with you when you saw her destroy the dolls?
There was a policeman that's seen it afterwards, and my ex-husband.
Do you have a police report?
No, because he wouldn't write it because he didn't see her do it. That's what he said.
What happened when you saw her destroying the dolls?
I cried.
And what else?
I got mad, and I had 15 minutes to get my stuff out of the house because he had called the law and showed him some false papers that I had signed, and he had stuck them with a deed. He tricked me into signing a false deed, telling me to go to Tennessee and hunt us a place to live all the time. Miss Hill was in a motel down there, and I could prove it, and it's even on my credit card.
All right. Now let me see the credit card.
All of the in yellow.
When did you arrive in Florida?
It would probably have been on the 30th of August.
I have airlines from U.S. Airways.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those your charges?
I really don't know much about this situation either.
I can explain this
I just
better.
know
All
I
right,
got
Mr.
down
Bowen,
here.
I have a lot of charges here on this.
Your Honor, that was a joint credit card. It was in both of our names.
Yes.
And when I started going through the marital problems with Miss Bowen, I asked Miss Hill to come down to spend time with the children to help me because I'm in Florida by myself. Here's the itinerary where I booked these charges.
Okay. Did you pay? All I want to know is there are lots of charges here.
Right.
Listen, Miss Bowen, I want you to be quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you paid this bill, sir?
I haven't paid all the bill, no. But under the divorce agreement, which we've signed, there's certain credit cards that I'm paying for. I was the only one working in the home at the time this happened.
This bill was covered under the terms of the divorce. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you that the credit card, who was paying what, was covered under the terms of the divorce. That was done prior to our legal separation. That is correct.
And you are paying this bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Well, show me proof that you've paid it.
It's not paid. It's late.
Do you have a copy of
Yes.
the divorce papers?
Number 6, marital debt.
Thank you.
All those charges were made prior.
Citibank and Provident credit cards. Well, that's not this credit card.
Correct.
This
Yeah.
is Bank America.
Those charges were made prior to that agreement, so I'm not sure. To be honest, we had several credit cards, so I wasn't sure which one that was on. I haven't seen what you have there.
Well, let me show it to you. So.
All I know, Your Honor, it was left in the house, and I get my bill, and it's got Cindy's name on it.
I'd like to see that.
She flew.
Yes, this was a credit card we both used, and I did make these charges.
Those charges were not covered in the judgment of divorce.
The 2 credit cards there are the ones that we agreed that I would pay. The other ones she agreed she would pay.
Well, it
That's
doesn't
a
say that
lie.
here.
Okay?
That's a lie.
Miss Bowen, don't irritate me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I lost everything.
His husband's ex-wife, Cindy Hill, made fraudulent charges on her credit card and destroyed her doll collection. Cindy is countersuing, claiming Vicky trashed her belongings.
Pay the Citi card debt.
Yes, Your
The
Honor.
Citi card debt was almost $10,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
I see what you did. After you signed this agreement, you continued to use a credit card and charge things on a credit card that she was responsible
No,
for.
if you look at the date of that divorce agreement and the date of the credit card charges,
I see the date. The date of the credit card charges were October 1 through October 11, and there's one for October 15. And you signed this on October 11th.
okay.
Well, why did you continue to use or allow her to use?
She never used. I used the card
Fine. Well, if you use the card, then you've got to pay for it, sir.
What?
Not $3,700, but I'm going to add up all the charges that were made in October.
Okay.
And you're going to be responsible for those. I mean, I can understand that she was responsible for the beginning part of this credit. There is a balance that exists before that you're responsible for, because clearly he took on some of the expensive bills, did not take on some of the cheaper bills.
Yes,
but then he had absolutely no right, once you were at the point where you were getting ready to finalize your financial responsibility, to continue to use this card and then say, I'm not responsible for it, I'm responsible for these two, but not this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I understand.
All right. You're not suing him for this money.
Correct. Her name was on there, and also
Show me.
It's Cindy Hill. It says for the plane ticket.
I've never signed anything.
That doesn't make any difference that it says for Cindy Hill. He made the reservation for Cindy Hill on U.S. Airways.
Well, as far as I know, she used it. I don't know. The card was left at the house. My card.
Listen to me. You're suing the wrong person, Miss Bowen.
And also, I have a
Miss Bowen,
charge
listen
at
to me
Dillard.
very carefully. You filed a lawsuit against her.
Okay, I've got a witness showing that knows she threw my things away. That
I'm not talking about throwing your things away. I'm talking about the credit card charges. I just marginally helped you.
Well,
you are suing the wrong person.
No, Your Honor, my husband's never been in Dillard's at the mall, and here's a charge for Dillard's at the mall on my another credit card.
Interested in
And I
another
know she used it.
Listen to me, madam. I don't care what you know. I'm telling you, this is what your lawsuit is about. You don't have receipts that were filed. You claim that you can tell she used it because the airline ticket was made in her name. I call up and make airline reservations for my kids all the time. Not on their credit card. I guarantee you they don't know how to use their credit card when they say mama.
I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that.
Hey, listen to me. So you're suing the wrong person. Sue him. Sue him for your credit cards. He's absolutely responsible for not taking this credit card and destroying it and continuing to use it after the two of you had entered into a separation agreement which divided your financial responsibility. You understand that, Mr. Bowen?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Get ready, sir. She's going to sue you.
Okay.
And I would love to hear it.
Okay.
Or let her go to her local small claims court and get a copy of this tape. You owe her this money.
Yes, Your Honor.
$3,039.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because whether you used it or you allowed her to use it, you're responsible.
I understand what you're saying. Yes,
Perfect.
I do.
Now you can sit down.
Thank you.
Now let me hear a witness, please, who saw her destroy these two dolls.
Your Honor, I was a witness to the after the fact. She was...
First, tell me your name.
My name is Sean Young.
How do you know these people, Mr. Young?
I know Vicky from being a local friend and a resident. I live very close by, about 3 blocks away.
Miss Bowen.
Miss Bowen, yes, ma'am.
So tell me what you know, Mr. Young.
Well, after the fact that she left the courthouse and they supposedly had finished their proceedings, she found out that
Don't tell me what she found out.
Okay.
Just tell me what you saw.
Well, I came by the house, wanted me to drive by to see if there was anything thrown out in the yard, and there were bags of stuff put out in the front yard. There were a few scattered things, picture frames, things that were scattered. It looked like they were, some of it was facetiously thrown out, and some looked like it was placed, but there were things, all along the front that were Mrs. Bowen's.
What do we know about the dolls, sir? That's what I'm asking.
Well, there was scattered debris. The stuff was broken up. There was a lampshade. There were some things that resembled stuff that was broken. I don't know what they were intact, what they looked like, but I do know what they looked like after the fact.
Okay. You back in Tennessee?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. It's over. So let's get to your counterclaim.
I don't know if you need these or if it's over with.
First of all,
these are the pictures of her belongings.
First of all, in your answer, you say that there were boxes of property that belonged to Miss Bowen.
Yes.
Where are they?
Right here.
Miss Bowen, when do you want to pick up these boxes of property?
Soon.
Give me a date.
Within 2 weeks.
2 weeks from today. Not within 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, so that's a date certain. You in the company of a police officer, and I suggest you bring a police officer. We'll go there with a truck and get your property. If you want somebody else to go, that's fine. 2 weeks from today, you go and get your stuff.
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. Now let's hear your counterclaim.
About a collectible dolls or dolls.
Forget the dolls.
Oh, okay.
The dolls are over. I finished with the dolls. I don't want to hear any more dolls.
Okay. While she had legal control of the home, my things were in the home.
What were your things doing in the home?
Because when I was visiting the kids, I stayed there after all this mess with my little girl, but I did sleep on the couch. And I promised to God on that.
Okay, where you slept, madam.
Okay.
You know to
I
keep
was
your
taking
nose,
my children to
keep
school.
your nose out of other people's business until it's all finalized. What
Right.
property do you say that she destroyed of yours?
All my belongings that I had were just thrown.
Like what?
Oh, I had, oh God, a lot of dresses, a lot of skirts, shirts. I'm still trying to pick up where I left off and buy new things, and it's hard. I lost everything, from underwear to bras to belts to shoes.
What date?
Probably the 7th.
Of what?
November.
So after they signed the separation agreement?
Yes, she left.
Your Honor, if I could explain a little further, please. After we signed the divorce separation agreement, Ms. Bowen filed a civil domestic violence and asked the judge for temporary possession of the home. The judge, not hearing the case, awarded her temporary possession of the home. After hearing the case and seeing her evidence and seeing the divorce papers and seeing the deed, the home signed over to me, dismissed it. So in that 2-week window where she had control of the home and our possessions, she destroyed them.
I'd like to see the pictures that she has.
Your Honor, I set the stuff on the back porch. I didn't do that. I set it, I packed it and set it on the back porch. Mine were thrown away in garbage bags with dog feces in it.
Well, there's a lot of stuff here that looks like it's all thrown around. That's
Yes,
true.
I didn't do that, Your Honor.
Your Honor, she had possession of the home. We weren't even
I didn't do that. Here,
Quiet! Miss Bowen.
Yes, ma'am.
You threw around her stuff. There's no question in my mind that you threw around her stuff because you just testified before me a moment ago that when you came back to court after this incident of domestic violence, she threw your dolls around and broke your dolls. That's what you said. Now, there is no question in my mind that under these acrimonious circumstances, you come home, you get a judge to temporarily, because he hasn't heard the facts in the case, throw him, his children, out of the house so that you can go into the house. You don't take her things neatly and put them on the back porch, Miss Bowen. That doesn't make sense.
His children is 19 years old.
I don't care if they're 10 or if they're house.
It was my house.
No, it's his house.
It was my house, too.
Miss Bowen, when you married him, where did you move?
With him.
In his house?
My name was on it, too.
Listen, it's over. There is no indication here to me that any of the property that you threw around was destroyed. There's indication to me that the property that you threw around was thrown around. So, listen, get over it. You already both had your opportunity to appear in court. You had an opportunity to have your marital situation resolved. You are in Tennessee and away from him. It was 7 years of your life that you're not going to be able to get back, but you had 5 other of these failed experiences, so maybe you learned something from this one.
Yes, sir.
You are back with your former wife. Good luck to you. And she says no.
No.
She says no. Well, it probably was not a very good idea, Mr. Bowen, to invite her back to the neighborhood.
Yes.
To stay in a motel, right? You should have hired a housekeeper. You should have hired a domestic to help you with your children, not a mother who had not been much of a mother to your children for a very long time. And these 2 ladies, like water and oil, you precipitated a lot of this acrimony by your bad judgment and bad karma. I'm telling you, she's going to sue you if she's smart for $3,000 for what you owe her for using this credit card after the separation agreement was, in fact, finalized between the 2 of you. That was the wrong thing to do. You get nothing on your counterclaim. You get nothing on your claim. Go have a happy life. And if you want to be smart from Tennessee, if you can serve him and get you $3,000. He owes you that. That's all.
527 on the calendar in the matter of Heasley versus Bunyavorn. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Miss Heasley, you did not have any first-hand information with regard to this case.
That is correct.
Your 16-year-old daughter was the one who let the defendant drive your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Which was damaged. The damage on your car. So why don't you let me torture you down, please?
All right.
Thank you. What's your first name?
Sabrina.
Sabrina, why in the world did you let this young man borrow your car?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, he talked me into it pretty much. He asked me and I was hesitant.
You have to tell me what he said to you. First of all, when did this happen?
It was before school at about 8:30.
Give me the date.
December 16th, I'm pretty sure.
All right, so you met him before school started at 8:30. What's your first name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy, what did you say to her?
I actually asked if she can give me a ride to my house to go pick up some stuff.
What stuff?
My clothes for choir.
Is that what he asked you?
No,
No!
Actually, I didn't ask her. I asked her friend Lauren, and her friend Lauren called her.
Let's start from the beginning.
All right.
First, I want you to try to stand up on your own 2 feet. You got to school. How did you get there?
My parents.
Is that a question or a statement?
Well, you asked how to get to school, and I said my parents.
Both your parents took you to school?
No, just my mom. Sorry.
Jimmy, the questions are going to get harder. Who took you to school?
My mom.
What time did she drop you off?
I don't know, about 8.
Where was choir practice?
In the choir room.
How long have you been in the choir?
2 years.
Why did you leave your stuff home?
I didn't think I needed it. And I was in a rush.
Just a second. You didn't think you needed it.
Well, I just woke up, got dressed, and then went to school.
Yeah, and you're outside the school now. It's 8:30 in the morning. When did you have this revelation that you needed something from home?
When everyone all brought their stuff, and I was like, do I need my stuff? And they're like, yeah. So I said, okay, I'll go home and get it.
So you asked her friend.
Yeah.
What was the name of her friend?
Lauren.
And what did you ask Lauren?
I said, hey, have you seen Sabrina? Because Lauren doesn't drive to school, so I told her she should call Sabrina so I can see if I can get a ride to my house.
And did you reach Sabrina?
Yeah.
Come on, let's hear it. So you reached Sabrina and you said?
I said, hey, can I get a ride? And she's like, no, just borrow my car. I'm like, all right. So I borrowed it.
No. Jimmy, that's not what happened.
And what happened? That's the thing.
You're going to tell me, and I'm not going to pull the information out from you, sir. You called her on the phone and said, can I get a ride?
Yeah.
She said no because she was starting school.
Yeah.
So what did you say to her then?
I guess I said, can I borrow your car then?
That's better. You see? It's like I had a camera there. She didn't say to you, just borrow my car. You said, well, can I borrow your car? And she asked you why?
Yeah.
Try yes.
Yes.
And what did you tell her?
I said, so I can get my stuff at home.
And she said?
I don't remember. She just
Well,
said,
then
fine. I
maybe
know she said yes.
So if you don't remember, now I'm going to go to Sabrina. My problem with you, Jimmy, is you remembered when you wrote down your answer that you swore to.
Yeah.
You remember swearing to this document?
Yeah.
You said, I needed to run to my house and pick up my choir clothes that I had left at home. I asked Sabrina if she could take me to the house to pick up my stuff. She told me she could not take me because she had to go to class, but that I could just borrow her car. I told her I'd be back before class was out and I would park her car behind the school. Is that what you told her?
Yeah.
Then you say, well, now why don't you tell me what happened? So you went home and you got your choir clothes.
I went back, I hung out in the choir room for a little bit, waited till class got out, and see her, so I just decided to go get some coffee.
Just a minute. So you took the car, you returned it,
Yeah.
parked it behind the school,
Yeah.
went inside the school,
Yeah.
and then you decided to take the car again.
Yeah.
And that's when you had the accident.
Yeah.
So I would love a version of the accident.
I parked behind
Don't look up. Don't look up to God.
Sorry.
God is not going to help you, Jimmy. Not here.
Okay, I parked. I saw a friend then when I was going to coffee shop, so I pulled beside him, talked to him for a little bit, and then I went first before him.
Who was in the car with you? Take your hands out of your pocket.
Who was in the car? A friend.
Who was in the car with you?
My friend Stephanie.
Did you tell Sabrina that Stephanie was in the car with you?
No.
Keep going.
Okay, so I pulled beside my friend, and I was going to see if he wanted to go with me, so he was going to follow me, so I went first, but...
Go with you where?
To go get some coffee.
Don't you have school?
No.
You didn't have school that day?
I have one period a day.
You have one period a day? You must be very bright.
Actually, no, they kicked me out of all my other classes.
They just kept you in choir.
Yeah, because I begged to stay in.
Go ahead.
So I went first, but I don't think he knew I was going to go first, drive ahead of him, so he hit the gas and he ran into the back of the car.
Now let's go back to when your mother dropped you off at school.
All right.
What was the reason for your mother dropping you off at school at 8 o'clock in the morning?
So I can go to first period.
But you got kicked out of all your classes.
First period's choir.
Shh. Just a second. But you didn't go to first period.
No, because I asked if I can
Just
go
a
home.
second. But you didn't go to first period.
Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat my question. Why did your mother drop you off?
Because I lied to her and said that.
Right, because you lied. Well, there we go. That's going to get it out. When did you tell your mother that you had gotten kicked out of all your classes?
I haven't told her because I don't live with her.
Who do you live with?
I live with my friend Mike.
Since when?
Since I turned 18.
Which was when?
January 12th.
But on December 16th, you were living with your parents.
Kinda, I guess. I'd come home like 5 o'clock in the morning and then crash and then wake up for school.
This is the raging success story you let your mother's car to? Huh? Sabrina?
Yes, unfortunately.
Sabrina. I mean, he thinks he's a hotshot. You know, he's a little worm. He's a little worm. He's a little dumb worm. He thinks he's going to get to be something really successful and have a really successful life, having dropped out of high school, living with his friend Mike, doing nothing. He thinks that he's going to have a successful life. Why would you want to have anything to do with him? I wouldn't say good morning to him.
Judge Judy Heasley claims former classmate, 18-year-old Jimmy Bunyavong, borrowed her car and crashed it.
It's a very simple legal issue, Jimmy. Even if you were involved in an accident, not necessarily be your fault, and you would not necessarily be responsible for the damages to the car. If you were operating the car within the permission that was granted to you, you were granted permission by Sabrina to take the car and do what?
Bring it back.
Take the car, go home, get your choir clothes, and come back. If I believe you. because there was no reason you had to take your choir clothes because you blew off choir. So why would you have to go home to get your choir clothes? That doesn't make sense, Jimmy. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. So just like you lied to your mother, you lied to her. You took the girlfriend in the car. She says you were drag racing with your friend. I don't care whether you were drag racing or horse racing. Once you brought that car back and parked it, and it was in good condition, you had absolutely no right to take it out again because that was operating the car without permission. You did not have her permission to take the car the second time. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Did you understand that before?
Yeah.
Really? You think you just gave me the wrong answer?
No, I'm just telling you the truth.
Well, if you knew that you didn't have... Are you wearing a belt?
Yeah.
If you knew you didn't have permission to take the car the second time, why didn't you just pay her to have the car repaired?
I don't know.
Do you know who the Vice President of the United States is?
No.
I didn't think so. Can I see the estimates on the car, please? Now you can stand up, Miss Heasley. Thank you.
Thanks.
How are you supporting yourself now, Jimmy?
I just skate and go to my friend's house.
You skate?
Yeah.
Is that how you support? I'm serious. Is
No,
that how you
like I
support
don't have a job. I don't care really much.
Well, who feeds you?
My roommate.
What does he do for a living?
He works at AIU.
What is that?
It's a online college.
How old is he?
He's 22. 20, no, 20. Sorry. I don't know how old my friends are. He's 20.
And you just go sort of and feed off of him?
Yeah.
Is all this information that he's giving, or any part of it, accurate?
Most of it.
Are these the people that you hang around with?
No, not anymore.
If you take a whole bunch of good apples and you put in one rotten apple that's full of fungus, what do you think happens to the whole bunch of good apples?
All the other ones are bad?
Yeah. The bad one doesn't get good. The bad apple doesn't get healthy. It infects all the other ones that they touch. That's a very good life's lesson for you. Certain things don't repair themselves. Bad character doesn't repair itself. Sometimes if you're just young and immature, that, you grow up. He's not going to be that fortunate. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,900.
Party's been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Could you stand up next up, please? I have as many questions for you as I have for her. Miss Lundberg, the junior Miss Lundberg, according to your complaint, this used to be your boyfriend. He lived with you in your mother's home for several years. And you had an agreement with him that you were going to work. He wasn't doing much. You paid the living expenses, but that when you went to college, you were going to stop working and he was going to support you. Well, you got ready to go to college, and all of a sudden the relationship was over and he didn't support you. So you want $5,000 from Mr. Brown because he promised that he would take care of you when you were ready to go to school.
Yes.
Mr. Brown says that he worked, that he paid rent. As a matter of fact, he paid your mother rent every month, $300. Is that true?
Yes, that is.
And you didn't pay your mother rent, and the two of you lived together, shared a room?
Yes.
He said he did give you his check whenever he worked. You put it into your account. You paid the bills, so he doesn't owe you anything. There are a few questions that I have that I just have to get off my chest. The answers to these questions, I think, are going to be a revelation to people out there. Your daughter was how old when you let him move into the house?
She was 17 and a half.
She was 17, and you let Mr. Brown move into the house?
Your Honor, she was living with her father, and due to Mr. Brown's living conditions, she asked me so he could better his life if I would be kind enough to let him move into my house and be my roommate.
I did live with my father.
When did she move into your house?
She moved into my house after she turned 18.
So now she's 18, an old lady, and she's living in your house. So he lived with you for 6 months before she moved in?
Correct.
That was a week, correct?
Yes. I mean, she was with her father more than she was with me.
Miss Lundberg, I would no sooner let somebody come in and live in with my teenage daughter in my house than I would take a flying leap off the Brooklyn Bridge.
Your Honor, you don't know the living conditions he lived under. I wanted to keep him off the streets.
He wasn't your child. This is your child. Then, after she moves in with him, according to your daughter, they wanted to start a family. So they didn't start a family right away. They bought 2 dogs and 2 cats. That they also moved into your house. You said that
it wasn't like that. I mean, what it was is we gradually got one of them,
And then the other one, he worked at a veterinary hospital, and somebody threw the dog out of a window on the street, and so he brought it home because he knew that I wanted that kind of dog.
At the beginning of 2005, things were going really well between Chris and I, so we bought 2 dogs and 2 cats, and they were like our kids. That's what you wrote.
We already had the cats from before.
So not only did you get him, you got a family of 2 dogs and 2 cats.
Which I protested.
Protested? I wouldn't have protested.
Well, I told him to
showed
get
him
them
the
out
door.
to go the way he was living. I felt sorry for him.
Miss Lundberg, you're a very, very nice lady. If you feel sorry, do you have a house?
We're living in a house, yes.
Does the house have a garage?
Yes.
That's where he would be, not in the bedroom with my daughter. And the 2
She
cats
wasn't,
and the 2
Your
dogs.
Honor, she was at her father's.
She came home when she was 18.
When I was home. That's when she came home.
The majority of the time I was there when she was home. But yes, there was times when she was not home where I was at the house.
But she was not sleeping in his room. They had different rooms.
Your Honor.
The majority of the time I was in his room.
Oh, I was. Your Honor, I wasn't there all the time.
3 months after we started dating, they had asked me to come move in with them. I had a job at a restaurant at that time.
He did not have a job at a restaurant at that time. He moved in without a job, and
Ms.
I took
Lundberg,
him.
I have not finished with your mother
Okay.
because I don't think she can give me a cogent answer. I think that if she had to reflect on it now, having heard the fact that when she wasn't around, you sort of snuck around, she was being a good person, she wasn't anticipating that this whole problem started. Now you can sit down. Do you have other children, by the way?
I do.
How old are they?
27, 25, and 22.
So she's the baby?
She's the baby.
This is the last one you have to worry about?
Correct.
Had a girl. Does she still live home?
Yes.
Where are the dogs and cats?
Unfortunately, they're at my house because...
You see, you always get left with the grandchildren.
Yeah.
I take care of him.
How old are you now?
I'm 20.
Now, what makes you think Mr. Brown owes you $5,000?
He had to go to the emergency room because he was very sick, and he didn't have insurance, and so he had a bill of, it was roughly around $4,000, and he never paid it, and so it went to collections. So I told him, I was like, you know, usually with collections, they're really willing to work with you, and so he got it brought down to $2,356.96, and he did not have the money for that. The agreement was if you paid it now, they would drop it to that amount, and so I went ahead and I paid for it, and the agreement was that he was going to pay
for it?
From my bank account.
Was he working at the time?
At that time, he had just lost his job.
For whom?
A boxing company, PCS, I believe.
I was working for Banfield, the pet hospital. I didn't start the boxing company until after this incident. And
how much were you earning?
At the veterinary clinic, I was making about $9.50 an hour.
How much did that translate to a week?
$250, $300.
And what did you do with the money?
All my checks were deposited in her account. There was periods where I did not have a job, that is true. But I was always paying the rent. I was paying for half the groceries. I was taking care of the animals. Like her cat got sick, $2,000 bill right there. I took care of it. I paid for it through my work.
Just a second. Did you get a discount for it?
Yes, I did.
Is that true?
Yes, the discount.
Just a second. He paid for your cat?
No, okay. It was both of our cat, and he told me that it was my birthday present.
You have the cat?
I have the animals now because he moved to Washington and left them with me.
Okay, he said it was your birthday present.
Yes.
And it's your cat.
Well, okay.
What do you mean so well, okay?
No, he said the bill for the cat was my birthday present. And it was brought down to $200, and his dog that I have got really sick, so I took her into the vet and ended up paying $400.
That's what happens when you play house.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The reason I moved out,
She supported ex-boyfriend Chris Brown for 3 years. Christina claims Chris is from a dysfunctional family.
You played house with this man. He took his paycheck and put it in your personal account.
But it wasn't how much he said it was. I have proof that his
I don't care
average
how
check-
much it was. He worked and put his check in your account.
He couldn't get a bank account because he had bounced checks.
Listen to me. I don't care whether he could or whether he couldn't. He took his check, put it in your account. You paid bills out of that account.
His bills.
Well, whose bills are you going to pay? Bird's bills out of the account? He paid rent to your mother, and he paid that, according to your mother, religiously. He paid for, he says, food. How did you pay for the food?
well, I give my checks to her, and she said that half of...
Just a second.
Whatever the
So you
grocery bill was
gave your
coming out of
check
my-
to her?
Yes.
How did the rent get paid to Mrs. Lundberg?
She would give her mom the $300. She would pay
So
half
you
the
didn't
grocery
pay
bill.
that directly. You put your money into the account,
took care of
whatever
all
it
the
was.
bills, yes.
Let's say it was $800 a month. So you had $300 for rent and $500 for everything else.
But he didn't have $500 left over. His average check was like $214 for every 2 weeks. That would only be like $450. I have statements showing of what he has deposited in my
Well, let
account.
me see. Let me see.
This is his last check. Well, one of the checks that he deposited.
Show me a lot of them, not just one that you
I don't
selected.
have the other statements with me.
Ma'am, I had actually asked the bank for the check stubs that I had because she deposited them in her account. They said I had to get permission from her.
Absolutely right.
Access.
I'm not interested in the living expenses. Living expenses, he put his check into your account, you played house, that's what happens. All I want to know from you, Mr. Brown, is there was a bill of $2,356, according to her, for an emergency medical. And when was that?
I think it was like June of last year.
Is that when he reached the agreement with them for
No,
$2,356?
it was actually August 23rd of 2005.
Now, after August of '05, were you working?
Let me see. Yes, I was working at PCS Boxing Company.
How much would you say you paid her back of the $2,356?
That doesn't count the money that we saved like during the whole time. I did not spend my whole paycheck every time we were together.
You're going to have to prove that to me, sir.
I can't without my
You're going
check
to have to prove that to me, sir. This was a recent bill, and based on this, she brought one bank statement for January of '05. Well, why did you just bring January
because,
of
Your Honor,
'05?
he had actually moved out several times. And in September, he actually got a place of his own with his friend because he decided he wanted to see if he could do it on his own. And so he didn't even live with us, and he didn't even pay me any of his checks from August on. Right after this situation, he told me that, because I was going into anatomy for my nursing program, he told me that he wanted me to quit my job after I've been working there for 3 years.
So did you move in with somebody else, sir, after the summer?
I had went out and got my own apartment.
Fine. Then at that point, you weren't giving her any money.
No.
That makes my life much easier. So you didn't pay anything of this $2,356.
Yes, Your Honor, every check was in her account.
You didn't give her any more checks, sir, after you resolved this matter with the bank for $2,356. You didn't give her any more money. You moved out.
The reason I moved out, though, is because she flew all the way across the United States for some other guy. So
that's not
just a
the
second.
case. That is not,
just a
that's
second.
not
Mr.
the case.
Mr. Brown, you want to discuss your social history and your social problems with her, go find another venue. In this venue, we talk about money. If in the summer of 2005, immediately prior to your moving out, I think was a very good idea, you incurred $56, which she paid, expecting you to continue to make payments into her bank account to cover that bill, and then you decided you wanted to live on your own, you owe her $2,356. But he doesn't owe you $5,000, madam. Just because somebody says to you, I'm going to support you when you go to college, doesn't mean they're going to do it.
What about half of the animal bills that have occurred with food and everything? They're expensive.
Put your hand down. I'm not interested in what you have to say. This is your daughter's problem. She created it with your assistance. She has to deal with it.
Christina Lundberg claims she supported ex-boyfriend Chris Brown for 3 years. Christina claims Chris is from a dysfunctional family.
If you can't afford the animals, get rid of them. Do you understand? If you love them and they're like your children, which is what you said here, then you take care of them.
I do take care of them.
Then that's just fine. That's what you do. You take care of them. You don't expect him to take care of them. They are not children. You don't expect him to take care of them, do you?
No.
Good. Then you take care of them. Babies wanting to play house with the assistance of their mother. I don't get it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,350.
This is Acevedo. Step forward, please.
18-year-old Sharon Perlmutter is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Jose Acevedo, for damaging her car when he installed speakers.
Ms. Perlmutter, the defendant used to be your boyfriend, and it is your claim that he botched a job of trying to put speakers in your car, which you describe as the most important thing in your life. And that as a result of which he damaged the car, you want him to pay to have the car repaired and to put the speakers in.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Acevedo says he is counterclaiming because you filed charges against him seeking a protective order. Those charges cost him a lot of money. They were ultimately dismissed, and they were not true. When did you get these speakers for the car?
The speakers, I actually had gotten them about 6 months beforehand, and I was trying to find somebody to put them in for me.
What do you mean you were trying to find somebody to put them in for you? There are people that do that.
Right. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them yet.
So when your boyfriend said he would help you put them in the car, what did you say?
I said, okay, that's fine.
All right. Mr. Acevedo, what kind of work do you do?
Yes, Your Honor. And that time, I was a lot attendant.
Listen to my question!
Sorry.
My question doesn't require an answer of yes at that time. I said, what do you do for a living?
Administrator.
What kind of an administrator?
For a 355 Toyota car dealership.
What do you do for them?
Take care of service calls and customer service.
So you work in the garage?
I actually work in the office.
So you don't work on the cars?
No, ma'am.
Okay, not a mechanic. And you knew that, is that right?
Yes.
And he was doing you a favor, is that right?
Yes.
So if he didn't do a good job, you don't have any recourse against him. Do you understand? You knew it wasn't his profession. You knew he was doing you a favor. You didn't have a contract with him. If he didn't do a good job, you should have looked a little further. Now let's get to the protective order. Why did you file for a protective order against him?
He threatened to kill me.
When did he do that?
He threatened in a message that he left me.
What did he say and when?
He said exactly that. He said, I'm going to kill you.
When?
Probably in November.
You mean after you broke up with him? Before you broke up with him?
Right.
He said he was going to kill you?
Yes.
But then you were together with him?
Right.
Well, if you were together with him, were you together with him because you were afraid of him, or were you together with him because you loved him?
Because he had messed up my car and I was hoping he would fix it.
So after he threatened you, you still continued to be his girlfriend because you were trying to protect your car. Is that what you're telling me?
He secondly threatened me. He threatened to kill this guy that I knew. And he said at the end of his message that he was going to kill me too.
But after that, you continued to be his girlfriend.
Because at that time, I didn't believe that he was serious.
Well, on what date did you file for a protective order?
That was towards the end of November.
Did he do anything between the time you got this threatening phone call and you were his girlfriend to the end of November that caused you to file for a protective order?
Yes, he got drunk at a hotel and he offered these guys $20 to kill me.
How do you know that?
Because this receptionist that worked at Toyota told me that after I
anybody told you. Let me see the police report that you filed.
They didn't give me a copy of that.
Of course they did. You had a copy of all these papers. You get a copy of everything. Do you have a copy of it?
Yes, ma'am.
May I see it, please?
Actually, I don't have it with me.
Well, where'd you think you were coming today? To a tea party? This is your counterclaim, sir. You have a counterclaim. Your counterclaim is for damages for false charges. So why didn't you bring those papers with you? You don't know. If you say you have these papers and you didn't bring them, I have to assume that you didn't think you were coming to court today to discuss your counterclaim. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor. I have
Good.
everything right here.
No, you don't have what you have. What you want. You don't have what I want. What I want is what she told the police, which you say you have someplace, but you didn't bring it to court today. Uncross your arms. Do we understand each other, Mr. Acevedo?
Of course.
Good. I am not dismissing your case with prejudice. I'm allowing you to withdraw it because you're not ready for trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. As far as your car is concerned, the most precious thing in your life, I wouldn't have turned it over to somebody who was inexperienced in putting in speakers. You had the speakers for 6 months. In 6 months' time, you can find somebody to make a rocket to the moon. You couldn't find somebody to put the speakers in. Then you found your boyfriend, who was an administrator. You allowed him to start tinkering around with your car. That was very bad judgment.
I know. I'm never letting anyone touch my car again.
Perfect. Goodbye. Thank you.
Is suing her ex-boyfriend, account manager Tim Lemke, for money she invested in his home and the return of a cat.
Now, this is case number 1 on the calendar in the matter of Abel versus Lemke. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Abel, you and Mr. Lemke were dating each other, and according to your complaint, you moved into a home that he purchased, and you paid him during the course of the 6 months that you lived there approximately $9,000. You claim that that was money that you want back now that the relationship is over because that money was really used to defray the cost of his mortgage.
Yes.
In addition, you claim that he has some personal property that belongs to you and a cat. Mr. Lemke says that the money that you paid to him was rent, that the cat belonged to him, that he had the cat prior to your moving in, and he has none of your personal property. What was the financial arrangement when you moved in, Miss Abel?
On May 7th in 2004, we discussed how I could help with expenses. Mr. Lemke brought up the fact that about $1,400 would be fair, and I offered another $100 just to call it an even $1,500 because 2 women, my daughter and myself, were moving in, and there's a lot of blow dryer and hot water used
Okay,
in
so
that
you
case.
agreed to pay him $1,500 a month.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and?
And then about May 24th, after I had moved in, we had become engaged, we had a discussion concerning my problem with the fact that I'm giving a lot of money to something that I won't get any return on. And why would I want to give $1,500 toward a mortgage that my name was not on? And Mr. Lemke said, well, I've been thinking about that, and here's what I've worked out. And I have the notes that he jotted down that day to explain to me how this money was actually an investment into his property.
Well, first tell me what he said to you.
He said that because his home appreciates $54,000 a year, over the past 10 years it had done that because it's lake property, that if you divide that number by 12 months and then again by 2 people, it comes out to about $2,200 a month in equity and investment money.
Yes.
And that is what he...
If your name was on the mortgage, and if the house was titled in both of your names.
That part was left out. The fact that he...
Well, I understand
yes.
that, but I understand it's left out of your story.
Right, exactly. But he also mentioned on the same piece of paper in an email to the attorney that I'm willing to invest in his home, and that upon sale of the home, I would receive the investment money back plus free equity. And that is also in the handwritten note that he
Let me
gave
see
me.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this note discusses a prenuptial agreement that the two of you were contemplating.
Correct.
And what he says is, Gail wants to enhance the aesthetic ambiance of my cabin and is willing to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
Any proceeds over $775,000 would be shared in the event of a sale. Are you okay doing a prenup for both of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you sold the cabin?
No.
Well, your agreement was that when and if the house was sold, you would share in the profits and get your money back. The house hasn't been sold.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So you can't change the agreement because you're no longer together. You could have just as easily worked out an agreement where you said, well, that's fine. If the house is sold, I get my money back, and if we don't get married, I get some of my money back. But you get your money back. The house hasn't been sold. That's your agreement.
But it was a term of our engagement and marriage as I understood it, that that money was investment.
You don't make an investment just because you understood it to be an investment.
Mm-hmm.
So you never came to an agreement with regard to that, according to this. Now, you're not suggesting that Mr. Lemke agreed to support you and your daughter.
Oh, not at all.
Good.
Not at all.
So that your $1,500 a month that you paid went for the roof over your head and your daughter's head, the electric that you say you used because you're two women that use more electricity for the heating or air conditioning or whatever else. $1,500 a month is reasonable. Get over it. Now let's get to the cat. Did you have the cat before?
Gail got the cat on her 40th birthday as a gift to herself. And shortly after I met her, gave me the cat.
When?
She said, we met February 3rd, and she gave me the cat February 20th.
Were you living together at the time?
No, she was living in her house. And she gave me the cat because the house was a total mess of animal feces and stink
Whose
in
house?
her house.
Yes.
And she had trouble with maintaining all the dogs and the cats in her house. So
How many dogs did she have?
I'm guessing 5 to 10.
Is that how many dogs you had?
I'm a breeder, Your Honor, and I had 5 dogs, yes, at the time.
How many cats?
2. And I would like to say that my house was not, as he mentioned.
When did you move into his house?
May 15th, 2004.
All right, so between February and May, the cat was in his house?
No, Your Honor, no. I'm sorry. The cat did not leave my home until April. I had not decided to move in with him until April. And at that point, he asked if he could take the cat ahead of time because his daughters would get a kick out of it.
Okay. When did you move out of the house?
November 26, 2004.
And when you moved out of the house, did you take the cat with you?
No, I couldn't, Your Honor. I had to leave in a hurry because of abusive behavior.
Did you come back on the 27th for your cat? Just answer my question. Did you come back on the 27th for your cat?
Not for the cat, Your Honor. For possessions that I needed, my clothing and that sort of thing that I needed that I could take with me.
Good, but you didn't take your cat.
No, I could not.
Why could not?
He had told me that I must leave the dog and the cat there.
Fine. Did you come back with the police and say, this is my cat?
Yes, I did on February 28th.
Too late. Finished. Cat's his. If somebody took my dog, I guarantee you I would be there. I would file a lawsuit, not for my property, but if somebody took my dog and wouldn't let me have my dog, it wouldn't take me from November 26th to February to say,
Your
my
Honor,
pet is gone.
I had been asking him for the cat over
Asking
and
him
over
for
again.
the cat, listen to me, asking him for the cat is not what one does when one is missing one's valued, precious pet.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The property that you claim
says ex-boyfriend Tim Lemke owes for the return of money she invested in his home. Gail also claims Tim won't return her cat.
Go ahead.
I have email of all the times I requested amicably
Just
to
a
get the
second.
cat back.
Starting before February?
Yes.
Show me before
Absolutely
February.
before February. All right, this starts on January 16th. Which
No, just a second. So the first time from November is in January that you have proof of when you ask for the cat back. Is that what you're telling me? Let me
That's
see.
the proof, yes.
Let me see.
It starts at the top of the page.
Where's the cat now, Mr. Lemke?
The cat was loaned to a friend of mine to catch a mouse.
Where is the cat now?
Oh, my house. Excuse me.
That was my question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you right. Apologize. He was loaned out for a very short amount of time, and she demanded I get the cat back and I could keep the cat as long as I kept the cat at my house. So she came back and verified, and that's in an email that the cat was there, and she said, okay.
Where is that?
It's in an email.
You have it?
Yeah, right here. And when she... Shh. Excuse me.
Well, this in January seems to indicate that you wanted to come to his house to verify that the cat was back in his house.
Yes. And I asked again, may I please take my cat back? And he said no, he wouldn't even let me near it. He had the cat missing for a month, Your Honor. That night he gave me 3 different stories as to where the cat was. First it was with an old lady having surgery.
Where are your dogs now?
The one that I kept is with me. The other dogs I placed in other homes because...
And what about the cat that you had?
I had the cat for 6 years.
Where's the cat?
Oh, the second cat?
Yes.
Oh, the second cat?
Yes, the cat.
The cat we're talking about?
No, your other cat. You said you had 5 dogs and 2 cats.
Right.
Where's the other cat?
Right. The other cat went home with Mr. Lemke's nephew and stayed with his brother. I have that cat back now. I'm very thankful to say.
So you have the cat back?
I have the other cat back, yes. But not this one. But in the top of that email that you see, he said, I will give you the cat back if it's that big of a deal. And I said, yes, it is that big of a deal.
Well, evidently it wasn't such a big deal because you waited 4 months to get it back. Now, what property? Are you telling me that the property that you claim he has that's yours are a soy sauce bottle?
Oh, sorry, Your Honor.
CDs, just a second. A soy sauce bottle, that's what you say in the email. CDs, a tape gun, painting supplies, brush, hand pail, rollers. This is what you say in an email.
Yes, as I discovered things were missing, Your Honor.
I'm not interested in as you discovered. Is this the email that you sent to him on January 19th? Soy sauce bottle, CDs, tape gun, painting supplies, and brush.
Yes, a growing list of things that I needed
I'm not
to get.
interested in your growing list. Get over it, Miss Abel. Listen to me very carefully. It didn't work out. Put your list down. It didn't work out. You paid rent for $1,500 a month for those 6 months that you lived there. Very reasonable, considering you are 2 people. You made that agreement, and the fact that it didn't work out, and you did not memorialize an agreement that was more specific with regard to the $1,500 that you were paying him is your problem. You cannot visit that on courts. It didn't work out. Put a period. Move on. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. All parties in the matter of Macias versus Ayala, step forward, please.
Medical coder Alina Macias is suing the mother of her son's schoolmate, business owner Sandra Ayala, for the cost of her son's medical bills. And Alina says Sandra's boy injured her son with a pencil.
Step over there. No, you have...
Yeah, no.
Okay, you too.
What's your first name?
Nathaniel.
And yours?
Jonathan.
Nathaniel, you were injured in school
Right.
with a pencil.
Yes.
You sat down, according to the complaint. You sat down on your chair, and you were stuck in the rear end with a pencil which lodged in your buttocks and had to be surgically removed. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And it is your claim that this young man was responsible.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I assume that you didn't see how the pencil got there. Because if you had seen how the pencil got there, you wouldn't have sat on it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't see how it got there?
No, ma'am.
So Jonathan here is going to tell me, because I read the answer about the flying pencil, but I want him to tell me himself how the pencil got on his chair. So we're going to start from turn around and look at me.
12-year-old Nathaniel Mancha says his classmate, 12-year-old Jonathan Ayala, stuck him with a pencil. Jonathan claims it was an accident.
How old are you?
12.
How do you do in school?
Good.
How is your conduct in school?
Good. Too.
Never have any complaints by the teachers?
A little bit only.
Speak up.
A little bit only.
And when the teachers complain about you a little bit only, what do they complain about?
Like sometimes talking and then like a little bit slacking off.
Now, you know Nathaniel, right?
Mhm.
How long has he been in your class?
This year only.
Do you like him?
Uh-huh.
Did you play together?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the day that he was hurt with the pencil?
Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how the pencil got on his chair.
Well, I was doing my work and like the pencil was like small, so I didn't want it anymore. So I wanted to throw it to the trash, and
It's just the pencil was small,
yes.
and you're sitting in your seat,
Uh-huh.
and you wanted to throw the pencil in the trash.
Yes.
Where was the trash?
Next to Nate's chair.
And how far away from Nate were you sitting?
At least like 2.5 feet.
So very close.
But
So now you got this little pencil, and you wanted to throw it away, and the trash was right next to him.
yes, it was right next to his chair.
What were you going to use to complete your work?
Another pencil that I had on my desk, which was bigger.
So you had a little well on your desk where you could keep the pencils?
No, I always put my pencils next to my papers.
Do you have a book bag?
Yeah, in my backpack.
Where is your backpack?
I left it home that day.
What were you wearing to school?
My school emblem shirt and my jeans.
Your shirt have a pocket?
No.
Your jeans have a pocket?
Yeah, but they're tight.
You know you're pretty swift. You think that you're smarter than I am?
No.
You're not, Jonathan. Believe me, you're not. You know where I'm going with these questions? Where do you think I'm going with these questions?
Trying to see if I'm telling the truth or not.
Yeah, trying to see if you could put the pencil someplace else rather than throw. What you're going to tell me is you threw the pencil into the trash. Or
No,
you
I
tried to throw it into the trash.
Yeah, I was going to.
Right? And it landed straight up on Jonathan's chair. And he sat on it. Right?
I didn't land straight on the chair. It was going through the chair when he sat on it because he was...
It was in midair when he sat on it.
Yes, it was pointing up.
How you got hurt?
Uh-huh.
Well, whose fault do you think that is?
Mine.
Right. Now we're getting somewhere. Why is it your fault?
Because I threw a pencil.
Because you threw the pencil. You had choices, right? You chose throwing the pencil, right?
Right.
So whether you threw the pencil and he sat on it or you placed it on his chair as sort of a joke, it's your fault, right? See, I knew we'd get somewhere. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now you can sit down. I mean, Miss Ayala, quite frankly, you wrote the answer. You told me in the answer that this was nobody's fault. It was the pencil's fault. Oh, next to your mother. It's not the pencil's fault. It's his fault. He had choices. And at age 12, he has to understand that there are consequences to making the wrong choice. His choice was he could have held on to the pencil. He could have put it in his pocket. He could have placed it on the floor. He chose to throw it, according to him, which way out, but, you know, not impossible. Certainly not his fault that he sat down on his chair, right?
Right.
So now your son understands that it's his fault and his responsibility that he got hurt. Do you understand that?
Yes, I understand.
Perfect. Good. Now can I see his medical bills?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of treatment did you get?
They put me under.
Under anesthesia.
Yes.
How many stitches did you have?
1.
Were you uncomfortable for a while?
Yes.
What did Jonathan say after you sat on the pencil? Did he apologize?
No.
Has he ever apologized to you?
No.
Have you spoken to him since this happened?
Yes.
Are you back to being friends?
Yes.
Good. Did you apologize?
No, I never got a chance to.
Well, now's a chance.
Sorry for throwing the pencil.
Certainly, Miss Ayala, you don't expect the plaintiff to bear any of the cost of treating her son. They had almost $600 in unreimbursed medical bills, and that you are responsible for. Because as between the two of you, he's innocent and he's not. Whether he did it as a joke or whether he did it because he was negligent or because he wasn't thinking. So you are responsible for those medical bills. Are these your only bills?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Why does that choose? You may step out.
Because it was like...
Then you may be seated, ladies. Have a seat.
Mr. Mahaffey, the defendant is your mother-in-law. You are currently separated from your wife. I assume this is your wife.
Yes.
And you have one child together.
Yes, ma'am.
I gather from your complaint that you, your wife, and your baby were living with Miss Strawn in her home.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there was some altercation involving you and your wife and your baby. You claimed that you left, and after you left, Miss Strawn burned your clothes.
Yes.
Miss Strawn says she did not burn your clothes, she put them out on the curb. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did your daughter and her husband live with you? From when to when?
They're going to be married 2 years in September. Pretty much the whole time they've been with us.
And when did you leave?
May 23rd on a Monday.
Tell me what happened.
I had my mother pick me up from work.
Did she always pick you up from work?
No, ma'am.
Why did she pick you up on the 23rd of May?
I had no ride at the time.
Okay, she picked you up from work and dropped you off at your house?
My house was at her house at the time. I got there, and I asked my mother if she wanted to see our son, Ethan, and I told her to wait 1 minute.
I went up to the front porch after arriving at the house.
Why did you tell her to wait? Don't they get along?
To some extent. There's been some problems, arguments.
There'd be no reason why she couldn't came in.
Okay, go ahead.
I went up to the front porch, and what I saw was Ashley and a couple of her friends smoking marijuana on the front porch, and my son was running around in the middle of them.
Where was your mother-in-law?
She was at work at the time.
Is this the first time that you saw your wife smoking marijuana in front of your son?
No, ma'am.
Was this a frequent occurrence?
Yes.
My daughter did. That's my pot.
Don't shout out again. I let you do it once.
Okay.
But don't do it again.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Put your hand down.
After seeing what I saw, I had asked for Ashley to ask all her friends to leave at the time.
Well, you probably got angry. If what you say is true, you probably didn't just ask. You probably got angry and you were shouting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you were shouting. What did you do?
I told her I was going to my mother's house to stay for a little while, so I had picked my son up, and I did not want him to be around.
You picked him up and you walked outside with him.
Yes.
And you went to the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What happened next?
I asked my mother if we could come over there and stay for a day or two. She said that's fine. We had left and went to the house, and when we arrived at my mother's house, Ashley had called me and told me to give her back her son. And I said, not with you smoking marijuana around him. Until you can stop, then you can call me.
All right. Miss McCafferty, I'd like you to stand up, please. You remember going over to the Strawn house on the 23rd of May?
Yes, ma'am.
When you went over there, when your son came back, he came back with your grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what he said to you when he came back?
He simply stated marijuana, and he didn't want his son around it. And
Did he use the word marijuana?
No, ma'am. He pot.
Okay.
And asked me if he could come over to the house and stay and bring the baby, which at that point I told him yes.
Okay. Keep going, Mr. McCaffrey.
After we arrived at the house, Ashley had called me, and she told me to bring back the baby. And I said, no, not with you smoking. And after that, she had hung up on me. And I had called Patty at work, and I had told her what she was doing because before I had called her, Ashley had already called her at work and said that I had kidnapped our son.
Well, that's not possible.
And after that, I talked to her for about 20 minutes or so. And she said, why are you doing this? Ashley does not smoke. She hung up.
Ms. Strawn, are you thoroughly convinced that your daughter doesn't smoke marijuana?
Well, actually...
Just answer my question. Thoroughly convinced?
Yes.
All right. There's a very simple way to find that out, Ms. Strawn.
She's been tested. They turned her into defects.
Has she done a hair follicle test or just a urine test?
The urine test. She passed 5.
Just a second. Has she done a hair follicle test?
Nobody suggested it.
Very easy. We can take care of that.
Well, you'll have to do it to him, too, because he's bad as she is.
No, just a second. I'm not interested in him right now. I'm interested in your daughter. Urine test is nothing. But a hair follicle test will demonstrate when you smoked, how much you smoked, and it stays in the hair follicle for up to a year. So you understand that if I order a hair follicle test, if your daughter consents, the results of that test can be sent to any domestic relations court when there is an issue of custody and or visitation. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Now go and discuss with your daughter whether she's prepared for us to take a sample of her hair and send it to our laboratory. Go ahead.
Like
go
I
ask
said,
her.
ma'am, if you
go,
do it to him,
no,
too.
just, he's not an issue.
Really?
Yeah. Fine, we'll do that. At the conclusion of the hearing, we'll do that.
Well, what does that have to do with what the case is about, ma'am?
Well, it has a great deal to do with the case, madam, because what you're saying is that your daughter doesn't smoke marijuana, therefore the story that he just told me about going up to the porch and seeing her is a lie. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm saying, well, there's a very easy way to figure that out. It has nothing to do with whether he smokes marijuana or not. It's whether your daughter did, and you are committed to the fact that she does not.
Right.
You want to smoke dope, that's your business, but don't smoke dope in front of your child.
I don't, ma'am.
Or be around friends who do.
We weren't smoking pot, ma'am.
What were you doing?
Sitting there talking, and he took the baby without a car seat and left. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, told me to come get him.
Does he smoke marijuana?
Yeah, he smokes crack, too.
Just a second. Smokes marijuana? And you never... Stand up. Stand up. And what you're telling me is you never did it with him?
Yes, ma'am, I will admit to that.
All right. That's all I'm asking you, my dear. So your mother is mistaken. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
She's been. That's all I wanted to know. That's it. That's the issue. Now you can sit down. You got it? Your daughter does smoke marijuana. She didn't tell you, but she smoked it with her husband. She says he smokes other things, too. I didn't ask her about the other things, but she clearly smokes marijuana. Now we understand each other, Miss Strawn? Oh.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're supposed to stay out of it. This...
His estranged mother-in-law, Patricia Strawn, owes for burning his work uniforms. Patricia claims Marcus is making up a story.
Now, let's get back to your burned clothing. Go, and get there fast, because I have other things to do today.
We arrived at the house after her calling me, and I talked to
So
Patty.
you brought the baby back. Keep
Yes,
going.
ma'am. And that night, when I was talking to Ashley, I heard Patty in the background asking for marshmallows. I asked why they want marshmallows. Did they have a fire going? Ashley said, yes, they're burning your clothes. They want to roast marshmallows over your clothes. And I did not believe her. So the next day, on the 24th, I went over there to see for myself. Patty was not there. Ashley refused to show me any clothes. I just happened to walk down the driveway, and I smelled something burnt, a distinctive
Is that
smell.
burnt clothes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You want to show me one piece of the burnt clothing? I'd have to see the whole thing.
Your Honor, who's to say that he didn't burn his own clothes?
Me.
After everything he's done to me.
Me. I'm to say.
Okay.
I'm to say. Because I read your answer. Got it. Okay, you can put it away. Okay. Ms. Strawn says that you took your clothes and she put them out by the curb.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I did.
You can't do that.
Why?
Because he's a resident of your home, and you have an obligation to hold on to his property until he comes to get it, unless he... Put your hand down. Unless he abandons it. You have no right to take his clothes and put them on the curb, because if you took them and put them on the curb and somebody else came by and burned them, you would be responsible. You have no right to do that.
But he's never so much as paid a cent living
I
in
don't
my house.
care. You allowed him to live in your
put it
home
there.
for
I
2
didn't
years.
want him
I'm
near me.
speaking to you. He lived in your home for 2 years. Don't get in the middle. You're really dumb if you get in the middle, especially if you have 2 children who are babies themselves, and I probably believe you that both of them smoke pot and whatever else. So it's very possible that you 2 mothers-in-law and grandmothers are going to have to be responsible for this baby at some point, because certainly they're not responsible. And I would suggest that you try to maintain reasonable relations. He's allowed to take his child.
No, he's not. There's a TPO
No,
against him.
listen to me. At the time he took his child, there was no custody order. And in this country, the United States of America, one parent does not have any priority over custody over another when the 2 people are married.
But it didn't have anything to do with him pulling up with pot. He wanted the baby, had his mom waiting in the driveway. That's what he did.
Miss Strawn, you weren't there. And the fact that you are so committed to the baloney story that you have concocted in your head, because I believe her when she says that when he came back with the baby and said she's smoking pot on the driveway. I believe he said it. You don't believe it?
I don't, ma'am.
That's your problem. In any event, you have to pay for his clothes. How much were the clothes worth?
The total for the uniforms was $508.
What kind of uniform?
My work uniforms.
What kind of work?
The job he doesn't have anymore.
Mechanic.
You really...
He's out of jail, for God's sake.
You are really thick. You're really thick. You're not paying attention to what I'm saying to you.
I'm paying attention.
No, you're not paying attention to what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is you're supposed to stay out of it. This genius picked this genius.
Yeah.
The only problem... Well, this is your genius, Miss... That's her problem. This genius belongs to you. She made a baby with him. He's not going to be out of your life. And that doesn't give you the right to vandalize his property. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $508. That's all.
What is that excuse?
Xin chào mọi người. Ở video trước, mình đã hướng dẫn mọi người hoàn thành xong phần kem nhỏ ở trên đầu chiếc mochi macaron như thế này. Và video lần này, mình sẽ hướng dẫn mọi người móc những chiếc bánh macaron mini để gắn lên đầu con mochi. Đầu tiên, mọi người sẽ móc cho mình một vòng tròn ma thuật với 6 mũi X. Kéo lên và trượt mũi. Sau đó mọi người sẽ móc cho mình 6 mũi tăng. Xong mọi người trượt mũ cho mình. Cắt bên. Mọi người sẽ móc thêm cho mình một mảnh màu xanh giống hệt như thế này và một mảnh cũng dùng cùng công thức này nhưng mà mình sẽ móc là màu trắng. Rồi, vậy là mình đã hướng dẫn mọi người hoàn thành một chiếc bánh macaron mini như thế này.